Alrighty then, what's up and welcome back to another live stream with Gizmo Slip Tech. It's a glorious day. We have the $1499 MSi Katana 15 with an RTX 4070. Now, there are a number of compromises on this laptop that they had to make in order to get that price point down to $1499. We're going to go over all of the pros and the cons of this laptop today. We're going to be doing a flex test, a display test. We're going to take the bottom off of it. We're going to run a synthetic benchmarks. We're going to undervolt it. We're going to overclock it. We're going to test the keyboard. We're going to test the trackpad. We're going to do everything we can with this laptop to see if it's worth the money, worth the buy. This is going to be one of the most interesting laptops because of the controversial naming changes that NVIDIA did this year. We're going to go over whether the 4070 is a totally crappy buy or if it's at least a decent buy. It's one of the most controversial things because basically, at least the RTX 4080 was faster than the 3080 Ti. But in this scenario where we have the 4070, it's struggling to beat the 3070 Ti. And that's what's caused a lot of controversy and a lot of confusion. So we're going to talk about that. So I see chat is already popping off. Holy crap. Okay. Sway Garcia says, what's the TDP on that 4070? I think it's not a full TDP. I don't think it's 140. We'll need to test it. And I know it's over 100, but I think MSI says 105. We're going to go over that though. Okay. Looking at chat, Haresh says, what's new today? Katana 15. That's what's new today. Basically today, and we're also going to do like 5 games today. So I'm going to try to do like my whole streaming setup all on one big stream today, including some benchmarks. That's the goal. So we're going to try to move through all of this stuff quickly and efficiently. Real quick, before we get started or continue, I'm going to go over some of the most competitive laptops with the Katana 15. So there's going to be a few other options to consider, especially if you want something that has a better display and a slightly weaker GPU. We're going to talk about that, and it's a laptop I'm going to want to review here. It's the new Pulse 15. Very cool that the laptop list has reached over 40,000 views now. Crazy, 43,000 views on the laptop list in less than 3 weeks, or basically 4 weeks, a little less than 4 weeks. So thank you guys so much for checking that out. It's very fun making this laptop list, and I really enjoy it. So anyway, so let's talk. What are the most competitive laptops with this Katana 15? So we're going to start at we could filter by 4070, but instead let's filter by price point. We're going to go down to $1,500 or less. Okay, so is that going to work for us? Can we get that? I think we got it. Let's go pricing. All right, so here are all of the laptops with RTX 4050, 4060, 4070 that have a RTX 4000 series or newer, basically all the new laptops for this year. So we've got the Pulse 15. I think this is the #1 competitor to the Katana 15 in my book. Let's pull this up. It's got a very similar build to it. It appears to be basically the same chassis, but it has a higher TDP on the GPU. And it also has a 13th gen processor. And then if we pop over to Newegg here, you can see it actually comes with a QHD 165 hertz display. So the display is upgraded on this guy, but the big thing about the Pulse 15 is it is only an RTX 4060. So you go down a tier in GPU, but you go up in terms of display and processor. So in my mind, I'm thinking the Pulse 15 is probably the better buy. I don't know. That's my initial thought, but if you're really focusing more on just raw GPU potential, then maybe the 4070 in the Katana 15 will actually be the better buy, especially if you're going to use like an external monitor, so the display quality doesn't matter. And in that situation, then maybe the Katana 15 is the better buy. We don't know. We need to actually fully test it. And it's a little interesting to me that the Katana 15 has a lower TDP on the GPU. So at least supposedly. So here's the Katana 15 that we're looking at today. You can see I bought this from Newegg, and it was shipped, and this is in stock, currently available for order. So if you order this now, you could get it in a few days. But this thing only weighs 5 pounds, less than 5 pounds. Extremely light, very portable. It's got a decent selection of ports. And it says only up to 105 watts is what it claims on the 4070, but it has the same chassis as the Pulse 15, but just with a different thermal design, I guess. I don't know. That's the other big thing. Maybe even the 4060 with 140 watt could actually beat the 4070 at 105 watt. That's what makes me, I'm leaning towards recommending the Pulse 15 in general, but then again, we need to do actual testing and see, right? That's the whole point. So those are the primary competitors. You also have the Acer Nitro 5 and the Dell G16. Both of these are also going to be coming out. There's no place to buy this, I believe, right now. This has a BH photo link, but I don't think it's in stock currently. But the Acer Nitro 5 with a 4070 and a Ryzen CPU is supposed to be $1499. That could be a better buy, potentially, maybe. The Aero 14 is another competitor right around this price point. The Zephyrus G16. This is another one I have ordered myself. I'll be reviewing it here soon. It's a full HD 165Hz display with a 13th gen RTX 4060 120 watt. And it's going to be basically their bang for the buck, more portable, very direct competitor to the Katana. But the big thing is I'm hoping the display is going to be better quality on the Zephyrus G14 or G16. So those are probably the main 4 competitors: the Dell G16, Acer Nitro 5, the MSI Pulse 15, and the Zephyrus G16. Maybe the Strix G16 as well with the 4060. Here's that one. This is limited availability. You can order this right here, but it's not. Interesting. This one certainly has some potential. So we'll have to see. I'm very curious about how this Katana is going to stack up against the competition today. We've got let's go ahead and get the unboxing started. And I'm really excited. All right. Okay. Jafar says, bro, I'm waiting for the Strix G18 to come back in stock. When is it going to come back? I don't know, man. It's when you get a laptop that's a big hit like that, it can be hard to catch it when it's in stock. As soon as it comes back, it just goes right back out of stock. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this unboxing started. And I'm really curious about the performance, the testing, and the display, what the actual nits brightness is going to be, and the color gamut on all of that. I'm going to switch the camera angle here and back this guy up a bit. All right. So this came in a triple box package setup. This was the second layer. This is the third layer. And if I pop over, we can go right here. There we go. All right. And the outside of this box has some nice MSI logoing with gaming laptop. I do like the box. The design of the box looks pretty cool. The inside of the box is pretty basic. It's got a cardboard protector. We've got a plastic wrap around the laptop. Murat says, I have to say your 2023 laptop list is incredibly useful. Thanks for all the effort. No problem, man. I really enjoy analyzing all these laptops. It's like I'm always been a laptop nut. Ever since I was a little kid, quite frankly. So since I got my first laptop when I was like 10 or something, from my dad. My dad's a computer programmer, so he in like 1998 he had like an extra laptop. It was a big chunky thing, and yeah, that was my first laptop. And ever since then, I was in love with laptops, and I've always tried to own a laptop, and I've owned well over 100 laptops if you include all the laptops I've reviewed. So I'm a laptop enthusiast, and like I said, I like analyzing this stuff for fun, especially when it's something I'm considering buying. So here is the Katana. We're not going to do a detailed look at this just yet. Let's continue looking through the box. So it did have a black plastic or a black microfiber-ish cloth. It's not actually microfiber. I don't know what this is exactly, but it helps prevent the screen and keyboard from rubbing against each other. Inside of here, we have our power cable. Mike asked, do you keep all the laptops that you review? No, I will be reselling the laptops to members on the channel. So I'll be launching a laptop review resale program in a laptop video coming up, or in a video coming up soon, explaining all the details. But basically, if a laptop's if it ends up sucking, I'm just gonna return it and not try to resell it to the members. But if the laptop is a great laptop, then I will resell it to people who are interested. It'll be an international program. You'll be responsible for paying for shipping, duties, and then a $50 fee for me to ship it out to you, plus whatever I paid for the laptop. And I will autograph the bottom of the laptop, and it'll be whoever, it's going to be a waiting list basically for the members. And so if you want to become a channel member, you like the live streams, you want to keep coming back, you support me just like a Patreon. $5 a month gets you on the wait list to potentially buy the laptops that I review. So it's just a fun program, and it's not going to be all of the laptops I review, because some of the laptops I review are sent to me by the the brands. So anyway, okay. So here's the power brick. It's very small overall. It's like very reasonably sized, and it is a 240 watt power brick. So it's not a super high-end power brick. And inside of here, let's see what it comes with, all the pamphlets and stuff. Jafar asked, did you face any problems of backlight bleed, or does the screen look okay? I haven't checked backlight bleed on the Katana 15 yet. We will be doing that today during our display test. I've got a black image we'll put on the screen. Okay, so MSI says, we are here to help. They have a helpline number. You'll want to write that down. Let's see if I can get it to focus. There you go. It's 1888. So 1888 1-888-447-6564. Okay, 24 hours a day, Monday through Friday. No support on the weekends, apparently. You get a 12-month warranty, okay? Looks like it's just a typical 12-month warranty and does not include accidental drop protection. We also get a quick start guide. All right, so this just goes over the ports and what you need to do to be able to turn the laptop on. You do have to plug the power adapter in order to power on the laptop. So just keep that in mind, at least the very first time that you power it on. All right, so let's go ahead and get the laptop plugged in and fired up. I have already set up the laptop, so we don't have to go through that. And we can go right into testing and continuing. Actually, first thing we do, always first thing we do, we're going to take the bottom of this guy off. I have not taken the bottom off, so this is going to be an adventure. Which 5 games am I going to do? I'm doing Cyberpunk 2077, Hogwarts, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Apex Legends. Those are going to be the 5 games we'll be testing today. Alright, so let's see here. I need my screwdriver kit. Where are you? Alright. There we go. All right, so this laptop is very small, very compact overall. It is very small. Let me show you. We're gonna stack it up against some other 16-inch laptops. So this is a 16-inch blade. 16. The blade 16 is just a little bit smaller. Obviously, the blade is known for being extremely compact and small. And this 15.6-inch is just a little bit thicker and a little bit deeper. All right, so that's the blade 16, which is known for being super thin. Here is MSI's M16. So you can see that the Katana 15 is much smaller than the M16. It's about the same thickness, though. And here is the big mama jama, the Strix G18 right here. It is a big guy, and you can see how much smaller that Katana 15 is. It's much, much smaller. All right. Last but not least, here is the Razer Blade 18. And you can see the Blade 18 is remarkably small for an 18-inch. But the Katana 15 is quite a bit smaller than even the Blade 18, so which makes sense. It's a smaller display. All right. Okie dokie. So, taking the bottom off. Let's go. Looks like we need a we need a Phillips head screwdriver to take the bottom off. It'll be very interesting to see, you know, when I get the Pulse 15 and I can compare the Pulse 15's thermal solution to the Katana 15. I just really want to understand, like, why is the Katana supposedly a lower TDP on the GPU? I mean, is that actually a mistake? Because I think they have the same chassis, like the exact same chassis. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Okay, Zephyrus, that's kind of a hard name to say. Zephyrus says, I've heard a lot of bad things about the RTX 4070. Now, this is something I want to touch on, okay? So the RTX 4070 is getting a bad rap here, and I think it kind of deserves it to a great degree. But I think it also doesn't deserve it. It's like in one context, it's trash. In another context, oh, that's actually pretty good. So, so what do I mean? All right. So the top tier GPU from this generation is the RTX 4090. The top tier GPU from last generation was the RTX 3080 Ti. So it only makes sense that the most expensive GPUs would get paired up, and you want to compare the performance of the most expensive to the most expensive. And then you want to compare the performance of the second most expensive, the RTX 4080, with the RTX 3080 Ti. 3070 Ti. So both of those were the second most expensive and second highest performing. And then, in my view, it only makes sense that you compare the RTX 4070, the third most expensive, to the third most expensive and third best performing GPU from last generation, the RTX 3060. Now, that's where the tricky part comes in, because NVIDIA decided to do this marketing BS where they added the whole new tier, the RTX 4090, into this, and it's just confusing the crap out of everybody, especially in this mid-range price segment. So it's, I think, even potentially going to confuse a lot of consumers, because, you know, you would think if you have a 4070, you'd want to compare that to a 3070, right? But in reality, it's the third best GPU, so that you want to compare it to the third best, which would actually be the 3060. But that's just it's a transition phase this year from 3,000 to 4,000, and there's going to be a lot of confusion on it. Essentially, what it translates into is I want to see a 4070 be priced the same as the 3060 last year. If people are pricing the 4070s like a 3070 Ti when it launched, we have a problem, because it should not be that expensive. Like, I'm on the side of the consumers. I want to protect consumer pricing and not artificially inflate the price of laptops just because NVIDIA wants to, boost their naming scheme. So, and I get that NVIDIA wants to match their laptop names with their desktop naming scheme. It makes sense. I just wish they had done that the moment they launched the desktop 4090. They should have made the laptops have the same tiering structure. So ultimately, for me, when I compare this 4070, the primary GPU I think you should compare it with is the third best GPU, which would be the RTX 3060. All right? That's the way I think about it. And when this thing is being priced, it should not be priced as if it was a replacement for the 3070 Ti. It should be priced like a replacement for the RTX 3060, which, as we've seen, has been, when it launched, when the RTX 3060 launched, it was priced around $1,500 for the lower end versions of the 3060. And sometimes it was a little less than that. And then when the 3060s go on sale, they went down to like $1,000 eventually. So I want to see 4070 laptops, maybe by a year or two from now, down to about $1,000. Would be my hope. It would be my goal. But anyway, so I think I got all these screws out. Does that all make sense? Like, I guess this screw's not out yet, but it's just a confusing mess, and it's a transition year. Once we get to the 5000 series in a couple years, it'll all make sense, and everything will be lining up again if NVIDIA stays to this naming scheme, but yeah. Who comes up with these prices? That's a great question. So typically speaking, NVIDIA will tell brands what they want the target pricing range to be, and then the brands like Asus, MSI, they have to basically work with all of the parts that they put into the laptop and try to make a price point that's as competitive as possible, and will hopefully still sell, and they'll hopefully still make money. It's one of those things that's basically, the pricing is primarily determined by the manufacturers and branding, but the price range is determined by NVIDIA, and so it's a bit interesting. Now I want to mention, this is the Katana. I have got my nice. I think this is the bonsai tree. I'm not sure exactly what kind of tree this is, but anyway, this shirt is awesome. It's from Into the AM. And there's a link in the description for 10% off on Into the AM. So if you want some high quality graphic t-shirts, go check them out. It does help support my channel, so thank you very much if you guys do use that link. I've been wearing this shirt for a couple of years now, and it's still in really good condition. So yeah, I just advise you to machine wash it and then hang dry it. And the display and the t-shirt quality, the cut is all really, really great. Okay, so we're trying to get this to pop apart here. And there's no pop-up screw on this chassis, so we're going to need to use, I think we're going to use a pick, a guitar pick, to get this thing started. There we go. All right. So once it's started, now I'm going to go ahead and use a little more of the prying tool here. There we go. I'm not sure exactly how the back comes up, so I'm going to go around the front first. That was easy. All right. So we got the entire front part, but the back so far is not lifting up. And it makes me wonder, did I get all of the screws out? Or does this latch in somehow further up or something? I don't know. It's interesting. So yeah, just pushing forward a little bit got it to pop up. So I got all the front and sides, and then pushing backwards on the back of the fans, it just kind of popped right out of the back. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the thermals and upgradability of this katana. Okay. Shabam. Whoa, what is this? What is this blue thing?
Listening.
What? Okay. That is interesting. What the heck? It's like a structural support, I think, to help prevent flex in the chassis. I think that's what this is. I don't know. That's interesting. Maybe a graphene layer for cooling? Maybe. That's because there's this open air gap right here. All right. So here we are looking at the inside. All right. So we have a 53.5 watt hour battery, which is not that big. So you're going to be looking at probably 3-ish hours of web browsing with this thing. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on how well you optimize. So maybe up to like 4, maybe 5. Probably not 5. Probably more like 4 hours of web browsing if you do a good job optimizing. And then if you do really good job optimizing for office tasks, maybe you can get like 5 or 6 hours of battery life with this. But most likely, you're probably looking between like the 3 to 5 hour range, with the 3 hours being not that optimized, maybe even 2 hours not being that optimized. So don't expect too much with this small battery with this machine. All right, so I see a couple of M.2 slots. That looks like, okay, maybe it's just one. I think one additional M.2 here. Is that what this is? But it doesn't. It does not make sense. There's no place for it to receive. So that's a weird placement for that part right there. Can you guys see that? Let me zoom in. What do you guys think that is? That looks like an M.2 receiver. But yeah, I'm not seeing, like, could you lift this up? You can take that off. But there's no screw to mount the M.2. Interesting. I don't know. So you definitely want to keep that in there, though, because that'll help prevent chassis flex. All right, so here's our SSD. It is a Pyrite brand SSD. I have never heard of a Pyrite brand SSD. But it is a 1 terabyte SSD, which is awesome. And for our Wi-Fi, trying to get a look at that. It's an AX201, and it should be Wi-Fi 6 with Bluetooth 5.2, which is quite good. For our thermal design here, we have a 3-fan exhaust. So sorry, it's a 2-fan with 3 exhaust ports. So we have a double exhaust port on this one and this one, and then another exhaust port over here. Our CPU has a hefty amount of heat pipes with 2 shared heat pipes, and well, actually, that's all 4 of these are shared. 5. Yeah, all of these are shared, and none of them are dedicated. So that means that the CPU actually might be able to go to a very high TDP on this chassis just based on the thermal design layout. Kind of impressive, actually. And you can undervolt the CPU, and I'm gonna show you how to do that in this video later on the live stream here, so you can optimize your performance at least a little bit. Now, I have not tried undervolting it yet, but I did make sure that you could. Now, the GPU has 6 heat pipes. This is a nice thermal designed layout overall for more of a budget-friendly chassis. I'm just curious why it's only 105 watt if this thermal design is so nice. Could it be more than 105? Maybe that's a typo. I don't know. Maybe it is just 105. I'm just curious. Why is it only 105? Okay, and then we have 2 SODIMM slots for our memory, 1 and 2, and it's 8 gigs, 2 8-gig sticks right here. And it is upgradable. You can swap these out right here. I don't want to deal with unplugging the battery, so I won't pull that out. But yeah, that's very nice overall. I like the layout. I don't really see a place where you could put a second SSD in here. It looks like you're just going to be limited to this one SSD unless you can figure out how to make this other M.2 port work. Like I said, I just don't see how they could mount a second one in here. It's super weird. All right. Yeah, it's so weird they have this extra M.2 slot and there's just no way to mount the SSD. Okay, that's pretty much the evaluation of the under chassis. It's not terrible. It looks promising. I want to see the performance, you know? What's the actual performance on this machine like? And why did MSI limit it down to only 105 watts to the GPU? Okay, so time to get this thing back together. So I usually like to keep this kind of on my lap when I'm doing this. It makes it a little easier. So I'm going to start with the back, get that locked down first, because that was the hardest part to get up. All right, and then we're going to go around the sides. Wow, the sides are easy to get back in. But you just want to make sure every single little plastic piece gets popped back together. All right, and I'm going to go around one more time just to make sure it all looks flush and nothing pops together. Looks good. All right, let's go ahead and get the screws back in. There are a lot of screws on this chassis. That is one downside to their setup. So I set up the screws in the same pattern, right by the screw hole. That way every screw goes back into the same screw hole. Because some of these screws are different lengths and sizes. The only downside to doing this is sometimes I'll like drop the laptop or something gets swept across the table and the screws go everywhere. So you got to be careful not to send the screws flying. And I want to note that there is a factory screw sticker, but your warranty should be covered as long as you don't actually damage the laptop. That is what the law, at least in the United States, is. That might vary from country to country, but... And there is also a hole right here on the bottom of the chassis. That should be for a CMOS reset if you need to reset the BIOS. Okay. So we're ready to flip this guy over, and I will power it on. It does have a really nice keyboard backlight, in my opinion, for this this price point. And notice the WASD keys are translucent, and the arrow keys also have a little bit different design. And the keyboard layout itself is exactly the same as the MSI GT77, but this is a membrane keyboard, so it has a different feel. Now the power cable is like 6 feet long. It's a very long cable, and the power adapter cable is about 4 feet long. Okay, so let's get this plugged in, and the power. Well, let's go over the ports real quick. On the right side, we have our headset port, one USB-C 3.2 Gen 2, I believe. And then we have a so it's a USB-A 3.2, and then we have a USB-C with DisplayPort 1.4. So you can use this to output high-end displays like this display behind me. So this laptop can power high-end displays like 4K gaming monitors. And then we also have HDMI 2.1 right here, the high-end HDMI, which is nice, especially on a budget gaming laptop. Oftentimes the ports are sacrificed, and there are a couple compromises on this laptop. Then we have our Ethernet port. It's nothing amazing. I don't think it's a high-end Ethernet port, but yeah. So headset, USB 3.2, USB-C with 1.4 or DisplayPort 1.4, HDMI 2.1, and then I'm not sure if it's a 2.5 gig or just a gigabit Ethernet. Not sure off the top of my head. All right, and then on the left side, we have two more USB-As. One's a 3.2 and one's a USB 2.0. So this has a USB 2.0. If you're going to use this, you probably want to use it for like a mouse or a keyboard, something basic that doesn't need high speed. Okay, so notice that the actual port itself is black. The inside of it, that means it's the slower USB. All right. All right. So I need to get this thing plugged in. And I'm going to put my screwdriver kit away. Got to keep things organized. How does the screen look? The screen is not especially bright, and it's not especially high color gamut or contrasty. We're going to be doing a display test, and we'll get all the stats on it here soon. Okay. So, I don't know if I guess you probably can't see that. Let's go. Let me show you the keyboard in detail here. All right, so you can see the WASD keys here are translucent. They look pretty cool, actually, I think. But some people will love it, some people will hate it, okay? That's all I'll say about the keyboard. Translucent keys there. The whole keyboard is all backlit. It's a 4-zone RGB keyboard, so you can customize the light in 4 different intervals, and so you can have basically 4 colors on the whole keyboard at once. Now, the default look is really good, I think. I like the way that it like gradually shifts from left to right. And the touchpad here is a plastic touchpad, I believe, and it's not that big. The click is all right. The click is all right. It's not that high end of a touchpad. It's more of a budgety touchpad. And if you get sweaty fingers a little bit, or a little, it can kind of catch your finger a little bit. It doesn't glide as smoothly as glass. That's the main downside to the plastic touchpad. But in terms of precision, it seems like it's a fairly precise touchpad, and it seems to work just fine for me in my initial using of the laptop when I'm installing everything. All right, so let me go ahead and get the laptop logged in here. There is no Windows Hello. Okay, so there's no Windows Hello on this guy. That's another cost-cutting thing they did on this machine. There you can see the laptop displays brightness, And I think we're at 100% brightness right now. We are. And I'm going to point out on the keyboard here, we've got a number pad over here, which is nice. This is the same layout as the GT75, which works just fine. It can be a little bit cramped feeling though, all right? So just know that it's not quite as nice of a layout as some of the number pads out there, but it's nice to have it. I love that they included it on a 15-inch laptop. That's very good. The arrow keys also have special functions. I can turn on a crosshair, pause play music, increase the fan mode, or turn off the display with the different arrow key secondary functions right here with the FN key. So that's pretty nice. You just have to do FN, that FN left arrow, and that'll pause play your music. FN middle arrow, and that'll put on your crosshair. And you want to see what the crosshair looks like? That's what the crosshair looks like right there. So it's kind of hard to see it probably right now, but I'll turn it off and on a couple times, and you'll be able to see it. You can customize the crosshair in the software after the fact. So it's just nice in first-person shooters or different adventure-type games. You know, if you need, it makes it a little easier to aim sometimes, especially if everything's really chaotic on the screen. So, okay. Let's do a flex test on the chassis. So going around, it's fairly firm, a little bit of flex, a decent amount of flex right here by the touchpad. Not much flex on the left side. A little bit of flex over here. A good amount of flex up here at the top. It's definitely pretty bendy up there. A little bit of bend over here on the right side. And this is, I believe, an entirely plastic chassis, including the top lid, okay? Coming through the middle here, definitely some bend to this chassis. I would say moderately bendy. Yep. I mean, you get what you pay for. It's one of the ways in which they save money. Not having to reinforce or design the chassis to be as rigid. And definitely some keyboard flex around the keyboard area as well. It's to be expected in this price point. Very rarely are you going to get something super rigid for under $1,500. That's just the reality. Sometimes you can, but not very often. All right. So next up, we have the display test. Should we do the display test next? Let's do the display test next. And I can tell you right now that if you are picky on your displays, you probably aren't going to want to get this laptop, all right? If you want something that's 500 nits, super contrasty, and is 100%, you know, P3 color gamut or something, this is not the laptop for you. I can already tell you that much. So, yeah. Let's open up the Spyder 5 Elite. Checking chat. Oop. Display analysis. So this is what we're about to do is check the color gamut and the brightness and contrast of this laptop display. So, and I also want to point out, this thing can lay back all the way, be flat on a desk. That's kind of unique. Not very many laptops can do that. That's kind of cool, huh? All right. So here's the color display. We've got to put this guy down here. Just like that. Good. Make sure the display brightness is all the way up. It is. There we go. We're measuring now. All right. I don't know when the Asus Scar is going to launch in India. And in general, let's try to keep the questions primarily about the Katana 15 so we can keep the topic of discussion focused around this laptop during this live stream for the most part. What about the hinges? Are they tight? Yeah, we'll test that here in a moment. I got the Spyder 5 on there right now, so All right, so we got to set the brightness down to 0. It does get very dim at 0 brightness. That's good, I guess, if you're going to use the laptop at night. And this keyboard backlight does look really good at night. It looks pretty good all the time, pretty much, but it is going to look especially gorgeous at night. So, yeah. What are the differences between a 3060, 3070, 4060, 4070? Prices of laptops are similar. So that's a great question, Albacillus. We're going to go over some of that today continuously as we're doing the testing. But I would say the biggest difference between the 4000 series and the 3000 series is going to be DLSS 3, which includes frame generation, which is going to be fantastic for boosting performance in the supported games. There's not that many supported games yet, but I think it's a really good technology that is going to continually get adoption and support, because I've been using frame generation and I cannot complain. It's just like a boost to make the gameplay smoother. It does feel smoother, and the delay that I feel is hardly noticeable. So unless you're playing an esports game, frame generation is great. And I think a lot of people are going to want frame generation. And an RTX 4000 series has that. RTX 3000 series does not support frame generation. The other big thing about 4000 series is they use the Ada Lovelace architecture. So that is going to help boost efficiency. It's going to make the laptop be able to handle more graphical throughput at a lower TDP, because it's a smaller nanometer finishing process on the CPU. So it's going to be more power efficient. Now, whether or not it's actually going to perform better is going to vary. So, and it's going to vary depending on what game you're playing. Is it a CPU bound game? Is it a GPU bound game? Can it use frame generation? There's so many different factors there. So, all right. Okay, so let's take a look at the results and then we'll test the hinges. Whoo-wee. Okay, so we got 61% of sRGB, which is not that vibrant of a display. 46% of Adobe RGB, 45% of P3 color gamut. Our brightness goes all the way down to 11 nits brightness at the low end, and 230 nits brightness at the high end. Not a very bright or vibrant display. If you're going to use this outdoors, you're going to basically not be able to see the display very well. And if you're going to be indoors, you'll be able to see it all right, but the colors are not going to be that poppy. The contrast ratio is decent at 930:1. So that's about the only thing this display has got going for it in like a majorly positive way. So as I iterated at the beginning of this live stream, the number one reason to buy this laptop is not because of the display. The display is definitely one of the compromises that MSI went through to be able to sell this RTX 4070 laptop to you at $1499. All right. And if you want a laptop that's very similar to this with a better display, go for the Pulse 15, the MSI Pulse 15, which is basically the same laptop almost, but with a QHD display with an RTX 4060 instead of a 4070 at the same price. All right, so continuing on, using sauce, is that good or bad? No, it's not that good, especially compared to the newer displays. The newer displays are much better. All right. Albacia says, this laptop is perfect for around $1,500. I don't know if it's perfect, but there's a lot going for it for $1,500. I don't know that it's perfect though. That's probably a little bit generous of an evaluation, but I really want to see what it's like in gameplay. I have yet to load a game on this. I haven't tested Timespy. I have not tested Cinebench. So this has a 12th gen CPU in it. And so Cinebench is going to be interesting. All right. I'm not sure how it's going to do. It's got 10 cores in this laptop, which is pretty good. It's got 6 performance cores, 4 E cores, and I believe 16 total threads. that's pretty decent. Let's go ahead and get load up MSi Center. I'll show you the control software you're going to use with this laptop. So when you set this up, you're going to have a few different modes that you can select from. You can do super battery mode to increase your battery life. You'll want to use that if you're going to try to, I don't know, type Word documents or take notes in like college classes or something. Silent mode is going to prevent the laptop from making as much noise by throttling everything down, reducing the power to the GPU and CPU. Balanced mode is going to cause some fan noise, but not maximum fan noise, and give you reasonable performance. At least that's what it's supposed to be. Extreme performance is going to ramp those fans very high, and you can hear them already coming on. And you can go into extreme performance mode, and you can activate maximum cooler boost fans as well. You can leave them on auto, so that way they're quiet unless the laptop's under load. So now I switched them back to auto. But if I go back to cooler boost, it's going to go to maximum fan. So here's the sound of the fans. We're going to go ahead and let this kick on so you guys can hear how loud it is. It's actually not that loud. All right, so I'm going to back it up so you can see how far the mic is. So we're about 10 inches in front of the laptop. Let's go ahead and turn it on. So there you go. The fans are definitely on the quieter side. That's nice, right? You want the fans to be on the quieter side. It makes sense. This is not some extremely high level of performance, and it's not a very high TDP. So that's one nice advantage. The fans don't have to be as crazy. All right. Yeah, they're not quiet fans. They're not very loud, though. Like, I've been listening to the GT77 and the Strix G18 and the MSI or the Alienware M16. Those laptop fans are much louder than this one when you're comparing max fans to max fans. So overall, this one's not really that bad. All right, so let's go ahead and hop into Cinebench R23. And I'm going to show you how to undervolt, as well as we're going to get a baseline Cinebench score. And then we'll be focusing on answering some questions while we do the 10-minute test. And I'll explain undervolting to you, those of you that do not understand it. So Cinebench R23, this is a benchmark that's designed to test the rendering performance of the CPU. So we're going to do we're in extreme performance mode. We're going to do a one single run first to see what we get. Well, we'll do a series of a few runs. All right. And we need to raise the laptop chassis a little bit in the back, like I always do. Let me go grab my hard drive. All right. So I always raise the back of the laptop up about a ½ inch in all of my tests, so that way it's fair for every laptop that I test. Talon says, I don't think we can undervolt the CPU. You can load like calibration in the BIOS to get an undervolt effect, but that CPU is locked down. You think so, Talon? I will find out. We're going to find out today. I think you can undervolt it, though. I think. Because I did see undervolting options in the BIOS. I didn't try, though. So if you can't, you can't. But I think you can. Okay, so we got 11,683 for our single run. Let's run it again. RTX 4070 at 105 watt, faster than 130 watt RTX 3060. Yes, ARP, it should be faster than 130 watt RTX 3060. I believe. We're going to find out today. But if I were to guess, it should be at least 10, 20% faster, I would think. That would be my guess. Maybe even more. Maybe, especially if you especially in frame generation games, it's going to be way faster. But in non-frame generation games, I'm thinking at least 10 to 20% faster at a minimum, but not massively. Undefinder says, hopefully this is not locked. Undervolting will help this laptop. Yeah, I hope so too. I think, so undervolting, for those of you who don't understand what it is all CPUs have to, when CPUs are made, there's varying qualities of CPU, and some CPUs can do run more efficiently than others. So in order to make them all work, they have to over-provide voltage, increase the voltage above the actual requirement. And so undervolting basically takes away that excess voltage and lets the CPU run at more efficient levels. So we got 11,127. Let's go ahead and do a 10-minute test. This is what we're going to use on my gaming laptop list. So we're going to be checking out this list right here. So this laptop list is a way for you to check out benchmarks as well as check out and compare all kinds of stats for different laptops. You can see the weight, you can filter by display size, and you can do all kinds of things. You can sort by rating. So you can like say, oh, I only want laptops up to $2,000 and that they weigh less than 5 pounds, for example. And that'll give you lightweight portable laptops only. Okay. So I want to also, hold on. Before, I'm going to stop this Cinebench run. I'm going to load up HW info here. I always have HW info running when I'm doing Cinebench run. So I want to make sure that, so we have an i7-12650H. All right, so that's the CPU here. That is 6 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. You can see the clocks here for all 10 cores. And we're going to see what this runs at and what temperature it hits and all of that during this 10-minute test. So let's go ahead and get that started. Now that I have this up, and you can see down here, we're pulling 97 watts on the CPU, 100 watts on the CPU right now, 99 watts. That's a good amount of wattage. 83 watts. You know, we've got all of those heat pipes going to that one CPU. It's shared through that one CPU. So it makes sense that it's able to pull that kind of crazy high wattage. The clock speed on all of these cores is really not that high though, only 2.7, 2.8. You know, it is a 12th gen CPU, but yeah. Oh, interesting. Wow, our package power is down to only 43. So, and our temperatures on this CPU are so much lower. You see that? We're only at 53 degrees on the CPU right now. 53 and 58, now 58 on average. That is so cool. But the thing is, it's a low power limit. So if you want to maximize the performance of the CPU, you're definitely going to try to raise the power limits up to probably 90 or 100 or somewhere in that ballpark, because it was running fine at that level of power limit. And that would let the CPU clocks go much higher, get much better performance. So, okay, so hopping back over to the sheet now that we'll look at this for a minute and then we'll check back in with it with the laptop here in a moment. So, so this laptop sheet will let you help you shop around. You can look at different laptops. You can click on the expand button. This will give you pictures of each laptop. You can read my thoughts on most of the laptops. I go through some pros and cons on most of the laptops right here. There's also benchmark sources and benchmarks right here on the sheet. So you can actually compare FPS numbers for a number of different games: Red Dead, God of War, and Cyberpunk 2077, as well as Cinebench scores, Timespy scores, and then this will let you, like I said, you can filter on the left over here and select, you know, if you want 16-inch chassis, you can set it to be the display size of only 16 inches. Or you can do certain price ranges or weight ranges. Or you can search specific brands like Asus or Alienware if you're hunting a specific type of laptop. Then whenever you do find a laptop you're interested in, you can click on it, and then in the bottom, down at the bottom here, there will be links to where you can buy it. Anywhere that we can find inside the United States right now, that's the links we currently have in there. So if you wanted to buy the Scar 16, you could go over onto Newegg over here and pre-order it, which is currently available for pre-order. And these links that are down here on the bottom are affiliate links, and they do help support me as a content creator. So thank you very much if you guys do end up using them. And they help support my team. My team is working very hard to make sure that the laptop list is updated every day. We update it multiple times a day, quite frankly, most of the time. And you can follow the sheet to get updates right here. This follow button will let you get updates if you're trying to be notified when a specific laptop comes back into stock. All right, so let's check in with the laptop and see how we're doing in Cinebench. So right now we're averaging 2.8 gigahertz on our CPU, which is just really low. And it's because of this package power being really low, only 48 watts. The temperatures are excellent though, but it shows that we could definitely push the performance of this laptop a lot harder than we are currently pushing it. Do the links have Indian prices too? Freddie, there's no international pricing, but I do want to start adding international links. So my goal is to, we're currently applying to several different affiliate programs that are international, and we're going to be starting integrating links from India, Europe, UK, and different Asian markets as well. So can this be unlocked like the M16? Freddie, we're going to try to find out. We'll see. Undefinder says, I really like the new shopping list website, easier to look through than Excel. Yeah, it really is a lot nicer because you can filter and sort and have images and pictures, and even my laptop review videos are up there on that list as well. So Yo Payback wants me to test the hinges. Let me go ahead and do that while we're doing this Cinebench test. So all right, so here is the hinge. All right, I'm gonna hold it here. You can see it's a little bit wobbly. As far as being able to tell if it's gonna come apart on you or not, that's very difficult to know. But the hinge design itself doesn't seem like it's likely to fail. But I do agree, MSI that's one area where they can improve their design sometimes or work on improving their brand. I actually had a hinge fail me on one MSI laptop a few years ago. So I have definitely had that happen. Overall, I do like, I don't know if I like the hinges. I would just say that they're just normal hinges. There's no weakness here that I can tell. It looks fine as best I can tell. If you're worried about the hinges breaking, the best thing I can do is say to try to get yourself an extended warranty that lasts 2 or 3 years. If the hinges are likely to break anytime soon, it's probably going to break in that next 2 or 3 years. In general, I do recommend buying external warranties from good sources if you can. Just because if you don't want to risk your laptop breaking, getting an external warranty can be good. I have used the third-party warranties a couple times, and it's definitely helped me out a couple times. So MSI hinges give me PTSD. Yeah. Morpheus044, what's my favorite laptop so far? I'm really loving the Blade 18. It's really impressive. Leon Malone asks, is there any news on when the Acer laptops, when they'll be coming out? Great question. They're already out in international markets. That's what I can tell you. I believe they're already out in India, in the UK, and Europe, but not in the United States. Why? I don't know. The United States is getting left behind in this Acer launch for some reason. I don't know. It's weird. All right. Can you open the hinge with one hand? Yo Payback, I don't know that you can or not. I won't be able to test until this benchmark's done. So remind me in a few minutes here. Swooty Woot says, man, it is so hard not to splurge on this new tech. Dude, you've got my problem, dude. I am always splurging on the latest tech. It's my hobby, though, and it's also my business, so it's a good excuse for me. But I would encourage you to be responsible about what you buy, you know? And I think that is one of the nice advantages of buying a mid-range gaming laptop compared to buying like a $4,000 gaming laptop. A mid-range gaming laptop in the $1,500 to $2,000 range is probably going to offer really great bang for the buck. I would say maybe up to $2,500 or $3,000 at the most is going to be giving you much better returns on your investment in terms of how quickly the price will fall and the value of the tech will fall if you're concerned about that. Obviously, if you're buying a $4,000 or $5,000 laptop, you probably are not that concerned about money in the first place. But yeah. Is there a cheaper MSI with an RTX 4050 and 165 hertz display? Check my list for N. There is a lot of different options with RTX 4050 and 4060. If you're looking for the cheapest laptop that has the most promising setup, I think the Gigabyte G5. Let me pop over and show you the Gigabyte G5. So, come on, mouse. There we go. All right. So this Gigabyte G5, it costs $1,000 or $1,100. I would go for the $1,100 one. And right now, I'm not sure if you can order it on Newegg. Yes, you can buy this. It's not sold out yet. I did buy one of these. I will be reviewing this soon. So probably sometime later this week, I'll be doing a live unboxing testing of this laptop. It seems extremely promising for $1,100. And I am hoping the display is better quality display than this one, even for less money. So it looks pretty impressive for the money. It's only got an i5 processor and only 8 gigs of RAM. So those are the two more compromises on this one compared to the laptop we're looking at today. But yeah. All right, so here is the 10-minute Timespy, or the 10-minute Cinebench score for out of the box. Let's see what we get. I'm really curious. Notice our average TDP was 48 watts for this 10-minute run. We're gonna try to optimize this score and see what we can get. I bet you we can almost, I don't know if we can double the score. Probably not double the score, but we can probably get at least a 50% gain is my prediction right now. I bet we're gonna get 50% higher when I modify and tune this CPU to run faster. So, yeah. Well, that's the goal. I'm gonna see if we can get to that point. No guarantees, but I'm pretty sure that we're gonna be able to get to that point as long as the CPU is not locked down. That's the key. What's the GPU TDP on the G5? I don't know, Freddie. It didn't say on there. Check Gigabyte's website. Actually, I can check it here. It should be on the tech specs page for the Gigabyte website. I'm here. 1 second. It is 75 watts. So not that high for the Gigabyte G5. I didn't realize it was that low. That is pretty low. So, yeah. Okay, so we got 10,874 points for Cinebench R23. All right, so that's our score to beat. 10,874. Let's see if we can get at least 16,000 after we tune the CPU. I don't know if we will. That'll be our target. All right, so let's see if we can make this happen. I need to get my mouse going here. We got a mission. We got an overclocking mission. So our single run was not that good, that much different. It was, our single run was only like 11,000. So it's not like the 10-minute test made much of a difference in this scenario. So we need Intel XTU. so this, you don't have to use Intel XTU, okay? And actually, I'm going to download the new version. There we go, and there we go. So I have not installed anything, and I've not undervolted anything, and I have not raised the power limits on anything. I'm going to try to use Intel XTU to raise the power limits on this laptop. I'm going to go ahead and shut down now, and we're going to go into the BIOS, and we're going to see if we can undervolt this thing. All right, so there we go. And so to go into the BIOS, you're gonna need to press the delete key. So I'm tapping the delete key. Right as the MSI logo pops up, you need to be pressing the delete key over and over. All right, and when you're in the BIOS, you need to activate advanced mode, Alt, right control. So it's left Alt, right control, right shift, and then F2. That unlocks the advanced mode in the BIOS. And when you're in here, you definitely want to be careful not to turn anything off and on that you should not be turning off and on, okay? All right, so we're going down to the overclocking performance menu right here. Pretty sure you guys can see that. We're gonna hit enter. We're gonna enable overclocking. We're going to disable undervolt protection. All right, and then on the processor, we're going to undervolt. I don't know how much to undervolt on this kind of CPU. I'm thinking probably around 100. Should probably be stable. Maybe not though, because it's only a 10-core CPU. This might be too strong of an undervolt. We're going to go 100 and see if it's stable. All right. So this is the P cores. Undervolt is -100. Notice I changed it from plus to minus. So I put 100 and then I put minus. And then we're going to go to our E cores. And we're going to do an offset of 50. Again, you have to make it a minus. Very important. You make it a minus. For our ring, we're going to do 50 for our ring. We're going to see if this is stable. This is my first time undervolting this thing, okay? So those are the three things I'm changing is P cores under processor, E cores cache, and then our ring cache, which is basically our processor cache. Those three things are now undervolted. And let's see if we're stable. I have no idea. First time doing it live, literally doing it live on a live stream. So this is going to be fun. All right. Can you talk to Asus to allow undervolting? I did talk to Asus, and they are changing it. And they're changing it at least partially because of me. The Asus product manager said so. Woohoo! Asus on the Strix G18 and Scar 18 is going to have better undervolting soon. They confirmed it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log in real quick. All right. Can you see if XMP is available? I'm not sure if it is, Talon. I'm not going to worry about going back in right now. All right. So we've got to close all this, and we're going to open up HW info. So we're stable so far, just loading into Windows. That's good. That's a good sign. That's fine. That's fine. Got to close down some of these extra programs like Spyder. And all right. So we're going to need to do more than just undervolt to tune this CPU. We're going to also want to raise the power limits on it as well. For our voltage offsets, it looks like they did not apply. Uh-oh. That's not good. That may mean that this is not going to work. to do the undervolt. This may be completely locked down. So I'm going to disable core isolation here. All right. And we're also going to go into Windows, turn Windows features on and off. And we're going to turn off virtual machine platform. And this is what's required if you want to use Intel XTU, okay? Katana is entry level, right? Ethne, yes, it is very entry level. This is not going to be competing with the highest end machines. All right, so we're going to go ahead and restart now. And we're going to see if this thing can... We're going to see if this thing is able to pull this... Sorry, I'm trying to get this light fixed. We're going to see if we can use Intel XTU now that we've disabled those features. Maybe we'll be able to do undervolting through Intel XTU, or maybe throttle stop. Looks like we're doing some updates right now. Amir Gad, how is the chassis? I would say to go back in the live stream and check out the flex test if you want to know more about the chassis. We also tested out the hinges. Did those detail analysis. RB, I just bought the same laptop. I'm worried about the quality of it. Is it okay? It's a budget laptop. You gotta expect compromises on a budget laptop. And so you're going to have chassis flex. You're going to have a lower quality display, especially. I think that's the biggest compromise on this one. And then you've got a 12th gen CPU instead of 13th gen. All right. So let's see if... I don't believe our undervolt's applied. But let's see. No, we don't have any undervolts inside of HW info. Let's see if Intel XTU is going to let us do any kind of undervolting. I don't know. All right, we're going to go to advanced view. We're going to go to advanced tuning. We're going to agree. So it lets us, it says the short power limit boost is to 200 watts. That's not true. Core voltage offset is locked down. It is. So this is no undervolting available in this Intel XTU. Interesting. All right. So for the short-term power boost, let's just try changing this and applying it and seeing if that can at least let Cinebench R23 run at a higher level of performance or not. We're continuing our exploration to see if we can somehow boost the CPU performance on this machine. Rose says sadage. Yes, it is kind of sad. I love it when I'm able to tweak and tune this thing, tweak and tune a laptop to really get it to go to a peak performance. It's pulling 119 watts right now. Oh yeah, it looks like our power limits are being applied, but we are reaching thermal throttling. So I mean, our clock speeds are so much faster now, but we are reaching higher temps. Okay, the temps are coming down a little bit. I'm just curious if the package power is going to keep maintaining this high, 100 watts or not. If it is, that's going to be such a huge performance boost. It looks like it's set to throttle at 95 degrees, by the way. So far, our package power is staying up at 100. Whoo-wee! So I think, I mean, if you want to tune this, to put out a high level of CPU performance. You may not be able to undervolt it to get maximum performance, but this should still be a dramatically faster 10-minute score. It's just going to be pushing the limits of your thermal this thermal laptop. So ARP says you need to enable XTU interface in BIOS. Interesting. I use older version of XTU to apply undervolt on a 10870H. ARP, send me some info to my email and detailing a little more which setting you're talking about, because I'm not sure and I don't want to use too much time in the live stream to do this. But if we can, I'm pretty sure our 10-minute score is going to be dramatically better than it was. So we're doing 80 watts now. We're not quite going as hard as we were. I think 80 watts is probably the right place for this CPU to be at. You're not going to be maxing your thermals. You know, at 80 watts, you're going to be hitting a high enough clock speed. And your temperatures on your CPU are going to be below 90. They're going to be in the 80s, which is much better. That's a much better balance, I think, for long-term viability. That said, Intel says the CPU temps can go all the way to 100 without damaging them. That's probably true. I don't have any evidence to indicate otherwise. But I do prefer my CPU temps not to be hitting that thermal limit. I just prefer that. So if this was my laptop, I'd probably set it to an 80-watt power limit in Intel XTU and just keep it there. I don't know. As long, especially if you're running max fans, that should be fine. Maybe 85 watts. Around 80, 85. This is phenomenal. Camera is slightly out of focus. Okay, let me... You guys should be in focus now. And I'll zoom in so you can maybe read this a little better. So far in this 10-minute test, we've averaged 4.1 to 4.3 on the P cores, 3.5 gigahertz on the E cores on average. Now, our actual clock speeds now are only about 3.9, which are still much better. Before they were at like, what, 2.5, 2.6 stock out of the box tuning. Now they're jumping up to 4.1 again. Doing 84 watts on average. Our averages are not accurate. They're not updating for some reason. Let me reset it. Okay, so I'm just doing a reset. This is going to be only for the second half of the time. Zahid Khan, what's the GPU wattage? It's supposed to be 105. We're going to be testing that out today. We're going to see what that kind of GPU wattage can perform like. Yeah. Overall, I think this is just about perfect. 85 watts. We're getting to that 90 degrees on the CPU package, 83 degrees on the core, and we're pulling 4.1 gigahertz on the mains, 3.5 on the E cores. That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal for this laptop chassis. I think we would be able to do a little better. We'd be able to do a little bit better if we were able to undervolt. That's one thing I'll say. So I think that's my... We'd probably be doing another 0.1 or 0.2 gigahertz more across all the cores if we were able to be undervolting this guy right now. But still, this should be a dramatically higher score than the first time we tested this. So we got 4 minutes left. Let me check chat. Oh, that's maximum that we're looking at. You're right. Okay. Averages. There's our averages. Thank you. Thank you, War Cobra. Yeah, I was usually... I don't know. I thought there was usually 3 columns. It was not quite wide enough. So our averages... I was like, why is this not changing? Our averages in the second half of the Cinebench R23 run has been 3.8 to 3.9 gigahertz. though the P Core 0 has been 3.66. Other ones are 3.88. And our E Core averages have been 3.0. Still much better than the first time. So, yeah. Talon's Tech says, you can set both the AC and DC load line to 130 in core AR, VR settings, get an undervolt-like effect. This causes VR drop under load and get lower temps, low power. Interesting, Talon. If you want to send me more information in an email, I'll read up about that. That sounds like an interesting experiment. Throttle stop is better than XTU, in my opinion. Have you tried that? I have tried and used throttle stop many times on many different laptops. And yeah, it works pretty well. Though sometimes it still is not functional. Depends. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And so it just kind of depends on the BIOS compatibility. And in this scenario, maybe throttle stop would work well when Intel XTU does not. Or maybe I just need to adjust another setting in the BIOS to be able to access Intel XTU. Rose says 105 with a CPU load. Yes, 105 with a minimal, like a moderate CPU load, not at max CPU load. You can't do 85 watts on the CPU and 105 watts on the GPU. That's just not going to be possible because this does utilize all shared heat pipes for both fans. All heat pipes that go to both the CPU and GPU. So it's an entirely shared heat pipe design, which is going to be great for CPU only loads like this. You know, being able to pull 85 watts in a more budget-oriented laptop is rare. It's not that common. And so I'm glad MSI is utilizing these shared heat pipe designs now to help boost CPU performance in budget-oriented machines, you know, or like moderately budget-oriented. Like this is a mid-range, lower end is what I would call this now, $1,500. Especially once this eventually goes on sale. It'll probably go down to like, you know, in Black Friday, this will probably be like $1,200, $1,300 or something like that. Yeah. Poison Milk Bob says, why did NVIDIA give 4060, 4070 only 128-bit bandwidth? That's just pathetic. So I think it's because of the Ada architecture. It maybe is not as needing as much bandwidth. And the 4050 and 4060 do noticeably outperform the 3050 Ti and 3060. So at least they're outperforming those. But yeah, and I really wish NVIDIA would also give at least the 4070 12 gigs of VRAM, and I wish the 4080 was 16 gigs of VRAM. Like, we need more VRAM if you're going to be doing QHD and 4K gaming. And I think a lot of 4070 laptops will have QHD displays. So I really wish there was 12 gig VRAM options for 4070. Rose says, I'm guessing it's 45 watts for the CPU, 105 for the GPU. It's probably something in that ballpark, Freddie. Might be 35, might be 45, might be 55. And it's probably going to be in certain games like Hogwarts or Dead Space where you're going to see the biggest dual CPU GPU loads, most likely, I think. We'll see. Okay, so we ended up with 14,347. That is not as high as I was hoping, simply because our undervolt was not applied. All right, so currently our undervolt did not apply. Let me go ahead and just make sure that our undervolt settings are still active. But that said, 14,000, what was it, 14,300 or something? That's still a 40% bump, or approximately 35 to 40% bump in performance compared to stock settings. And then if you were to throw the undervolt in there, if we can get this thing to undervolt, that's where we get another 10% performance bump. So popping over into the BIOS again, pressing the delete key. All right, we're back into the BIOS. Let's just make sure that our settings were saved. Like I said, I'm guessing it's not going to take. The BIOS must be locked down in some way. Here, I don't know. Let me try turning off Intel virtualization here. I just want to see here. Looking around. Okay. So let's check our undervolts again. We have overclocking enabled, undervolting disabled. P-core, it's in here. The offset is here. It's just not being applied. They must not be allowing it. MSI must not be allowing it, unfortunately. So that's too bad. No undervolting, as far as I can tell, unless throttle stop lets it happen. ARP said to enable XTU interface. He didn't say where. We could try loading up throttle stop. Might as well download it and throw it up. Then we're going to explain how to use the software. It's been a few years since I used it, so I'll have to boggle the brain. But let's try checking out throttle stop. At least we were able to raise the power limit with Intel XTU. That's a huge step in the right direction. That's honestly a much bigger step than undervolting, quite frankly. So we're going to download throttle stop 9.5. I hope that's the right. It is such a small file. It's only 1.5 gigs or 1.5 megs. All right. So notice that when you're using throttle stop, you really do not want to be utilizing Intel XTU at the same time. Want to point that out. So, man, it's been 3 or 4 years since I used throttle stop. So, we want to do this guy. Trying to remember. Where's the button again to modify? It's not options. This menu interface is different than the one I had used. Let me zoom in so you guys can see. So we have this is the interface for throttle stop. You're not going to be able to modify everything that's in here, simply because sometimes the BIOS is not going to let you modify anything, or if the throttle stop is not compatible. But I believe this is typically where you would be modifying these settings. So what we would want to do is apply an offset voltage here. It's all grayed out. So even throttle stop is not letting us do anything. So that means that yeah, it's not gonna, it's still grayed out even in throttle stop, unfortunately. I don't believe, unless I'm just not remembering correctly, but I believe if we were able to use throttle stop, this would be unlocked right here. We would check this box right here, and then we would take our offset voltage and slide that over. So yeah, we're not going to be able to use throttle stop. Throttle stop's a pretty sweet application if you end up with a laptop that has it unlocked. But for now, my recommendation is to use Intel XTU, raise the power limit to about 85, and you're going to get so much better CPU performance. That said, under a dual load, you may not want to go up to 85. That may be a little bit too high. All right. So we were able to get 40% approximate bump in CPU performance. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That level of CPU performance we got, 14,000 in Cinebench R23. My laptop over here, it gets about 15,000. And this was a $3,400 laptop only a couple years ago, right? So that's a Legion 7i with an i9 11980HK, and that sucker gets like 15,000. And so this machine with raised power limits, almost as high, at half the price of what I paid for that machine. So it's still very, very impressive performance. But the new i9 processors can do like 30,000. So just know that compared to the highest end, 30,000 is where the upper end is. This is about halfway as fast as those new fastest CPUs. All right, so we're going to start out in God of War. Let's go. So we're doing 5 games, and then we're going to do Timespy at the end. So the 5 games we're going to do is God of War, then Hogwarts, then Cyberpunk 2077, Apex Legends, and what was the 5th game that I mentioned? Red Dead Redemption 2. So those are going to be our 5 games we're going to be testing. Should be some excellent gameplay testing, including one esports game. Now, you got to remember that the display here is a 144 hertz display. So our target is going to be 144 FPS in games if possible. Like in Apex Legends, if it can do 144, that's going to be amazing. All right, so we've got an RTX 4070. We need to get Afterburner open. And we're only using 6 gigs out of our 8 gigs of VRAM right now in God of War. That's good. We do not want an FPS limit. We don't want 16 by 10. We want 16 by 9. All right. All of this looks good. We're going to do God of War on quality settings. Now, I do have a projector behind me where we're going to test 3 of these games on QHD 16 by 10 so we can compare performance on equal resolution. So this should be like what? $500, and for this guy we want like 12. Yeah. Maybe 14. Okay. Beautiful. All right. So you can see that we're currently using 9 gigs of our system RAM. 4.5 gigs of our VRAM, according to this Afterburner thing. All right, so here we are, God of War. I think everything's on Ultra. Let me check. I believe, so graphics mode, everything is set to Ultra. We're cranked to maximum settings. In God of War, we are 1080p DLSS on quality. All right, that's what we're doing our first test with. We're running at 90 FPS, 68 FPS. Yeah, we should be good to go to do this test. So this is where we do a quick test in God of War. Notice our GPU is sitting at 85 watts. Our CPU is sitting at 41 watts. So that's our current combined GPU load, about 120 to 130 watts, which is not super high. Not super high. I expect the Pulse 15 would be at least doing 115 watts as a base here. Okay? All right. So we're going to go ahead and do this run. We'll see what we get. I love the temperatures, though. We're only 66 degrees on the GPU, 72, 75 on the CPU. The temps in this right now are phenomenal. And we're hitting high GPU utilization, which is great. We're not being CPU bound.
Tracks. Not you, though. I'll keep looking.
All right, so we ended up with 7634. And I can tell right now, I am getting just a little bit of ghosting on the display. When I move the display quickly, left to right, that's going to impact your esports gaming and fast response rate gaming pretty noticeably. So 7634 for our initial run. We'll try without DLSS for this run. All right. And we're going to see what we get. I would love to see, in a game like this, the target FPS for me would probably be 60, maybe 90 FPS if I was trying to be a bit quicker and ensure that it was very, very smooth gameplay. So without DLSS, we're hitting 66 FPS. That's pretty dang good, especially for all ultra settings. Like you could obviously down some of these settings and hit way higher FPS. At 1080p, DLSS doesn't really get us that much, right? DLSS really helps us more at QHD and 4K resolutions. 68 FPS, 46 for our 1% lows. If we wanted to, I mean, just for fun, let's try DLSS on ultra. No, let's do just performance. Just for fun. See what kind of FPS we get with performance. Wow, it's not that much different. It's like the same almost as DLSS on or off. You definitely don't want to play with performance at 1080p. That's a bad idea. You maybe upscale a bit better when you're doing... You'd probably want to just do quality or just turn it off entirely at 1080p. All right. So overall, obviously going to be very playable for God of War. And it's going to be very good FPS. Let's go ahead and hop into Hogwarts Legacy. Now, this one's going to be interesting because it is such a VRAM hog. Like, it wants so much VRAM that it's crazy. So I'm expecting stuttering. We're going to have to turn the VRAM down, or the textures down to low for sure, I think. Maybe not at 1080p, but we'll find out if we're getting lots of 1% lows. Maybe they optimize the game a bit better. I don't know. I am reading comments. Sorry. Did I miss something important? How come the CPU temps of this laptop is 14 degrees better than the Scar 18? So it all depends on load. The Scar 18 has way better cooling than this laptop. But the thing is, load on the Scar 18 when you're running like Hogwarts is going to be so much heavier. So I'm expecting CPU temps to be higher in Hogwarts. It's going to vary from game to game. Like God of War is not that demanding on the CPU. So you gotta keep that in mind. I also realized that we have not done our speaker test, and I want to do a speaker test as well. Ro says, how much VRAM is needed? Well, at QHD, if you run ultra textures, it seems to be about 12 to 13 gigs of VRAM for Hogwarts. Now, if you lower the resolution through DLSS, like down to like performance or whatever, or you just change the texture to resolution down to low, the game still seems to look pretty dang good. And then the VRAM goes down to more like 7 or 8 gigs. So I'm thinking we'll probably be okay if we're playing at 1080p. And we have textures on low. It should work fine on this laptop, I think, but we'll have to see. Today, so Rawl says, will you do more games benchmarking like Dying Light 2 or Modern Warfare 2 Warzone? We are not doing those today. We're doing a 5-game suite that I mentioned just a moment ago. Okay, so our frame rate is set to uncapped. DLSS is on quality. Frame generation is enabled. All right. We're at full screen. Our settings are on ultra with ray tracing enabled. Okay. Everything's turned on. Everything's turned on, including DLSS and frame generation. Let's see what we get. I'm curious. I mean, if this thing can run Hogwarts really well, I'm going to be impressed. We'll see. So our VRAM is at 7.5 gigs. That's our 1% lows are actually not doing too bad. Well, we're just gonna see what kind of FPS we get in this. We did get a 1% starter that was pretty low there. I'm gonna turn the sound all the way up for the speakers here. And let you guys kind of listen to them. I'm gonna hold the mic.
You could get to the child when they came to Hogsmeade. That all you needed was a distraction. I gave you a distraction.
I just watched a student take down your distraction. Who's this child? What are you not telling me?
All you need to know is that if you cannot get to the child, then you have no value to me. Let's go.
Did they see us?
I don't think so.
What was that goblin doing with Victor Rookwood?
Ranrock is working with Rookwood.
The goblin from the Daily Prophet. I knew I'd seen him somewhere. Quickly, let's get inside the 3 broomsticks.
Okay, so I want to point out, this is playing really well, by the way. I'm impressed. We are maxing our regular RAM. We have 16 gigs of RAM. We're at 15.8 right here, and then our VRAM is also maxed at 7.2. That's pretty much maxed because you gotta have a little bit of wiggle room there. But the performance is still doing okay. Hitting 83 FPS, and it's not stuttering too much, actually. And the temperatures are pretty dang good. 65 degrees, 73 degrees. I'm impressed. I just think that we would probably get higher FPS just if we had higher power limits. That's the only thing that I'm like, I wish we had higher power limits, but if the power limits were higher, hold on. I'm turning the volume down just a little bit. If the power limits were higher, the problem is we would end up with higher temperatures. We would get higher performance too. So these moderate levels of power limits here, it's just cranking out some good FPS considering everything is turned to max right now on the settings. Still providing a very playable experience. Very impressive temperatures. Yeah, I would agree. The temperatures are very impressive. Let me turn the sound back up and you guys can watch this one.
Theatrics? I'm not here for this one anyway.
My friend is enjoying a well-earned butterbeer.
Only want a quick word.
Perhaps you didn't hear me. I said, my friend is busy.
One would think you all had enough bloodshed for one day. Come, Theophilus. The 3 broomsticks isn't what it used to be. Let's take our galleons elsewhere. Can't drink butterbeer forever.
So impressive. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I really want to see a run around the city a little bit more. The cinematics tend to be a little higher FPS anyway. So this game is surprisingly dark. There's one quest where you have to go try to find an elf, and then the elf ends up dead in the cavern, and you just find a corpse. You're like, dang, this is way darker than normal Harry Potter.
I am certainly glad Sirona was there.
And that she isn't intimidated by thugs like Rookwood and Harlan.
I want to understand what's going on.
Our 1% lows are surprisingly good. It's much better than I was expecting.
Professor, we should certainly hear about the troll attack soon.
This should be averaging. Maybe it's not active anymore. I'm gonna start a new average here. It's gonna make me teleport, I think, here, guys. Because it's like doing the tutorial part. Wow. The color, I really wish this thing was more colorful because it's those things are supposed to look very green, and it didn't look that green. Just like it was like subtly green. I was like, wait, I can click on that. What are the current game settings for this run? We are on everything ultra, ray tracing enabled, DLSS on quality, frame generation is on. But yeah, everything is on ultra, I think including textures. So I'll show you the settings again that we just experienced. DLSS on quality, frame generation on. Everything is on ultra, including textures. So I'm just impressed that it wasn't a stuttery mess. Because we were filling up the VRAM, you know? And now we're hitting 145 FPS. So if you're looking for, if you want a 1080p laptop that plays Hogwarts fine, this is gonna do all right. Can I go back to Hogsmeade or teleport around? Okay, there we go. For $1,500, that's not bad. Yeah, the biggest qualm with this laptop is definitely just the display, though. Okay, so let's try this run. We're at 1080p right now, but let's go ahead and just... This is one of the benchmarking runs that we do for the game. Running through here. I think the Hogwarts Legacy released a patch, a few patches actually, since the game came out. And I think the optimization has gotten better over time. So at 1080p, everything on Ultra, ray tracing enabled, frame generation on, 109.22. Let's try taking off. I mean, there's no reason why you would do this, in my opinion. But we're going to take off DLSS and turn off frame generation. Okay? Those are gone now. And let's see what kind of FPS we get without those enabled. Okay? It's going to be a lot less. So, but let's just do a run. Yeah, frame generation it's like, I can see such a difference in smoothness enabling DLSS and frame generation. We did more than double the FPS with those two things enabled here, right? I mean, that's such a big difference. This laptop is worth the money. I would say this laptop's only worth the money if you don't need a high quality display. That's the caveat for me. All right, last run, and then I need to change the batteries in the camera. And then I want to run back to Hogsmeade and see what it's like over there. Oh, I didn't... Did I? No, the average is not going, is it? I don't think I enabled the average at the right time. Or did I? I don't think so. Let's start this over again. I need to make sure it's the right... I want to make sure it's done correctly. All right, so here we go. Average has been engaged. We're running. So we got 4521. And what did we get? 112? It's not quite triple the performance with frame generation, but it's a big difference. If you want to play with ray tracing enabled, you pretty much want to have frame generation. All right, let's go back to the map. Let's go back to Hogsmeade. And we're going to just do our run through Hogsmeade as well. Aldo Zampi, can you try DLSS but without frame generation? I could, Aldo. It's not going to... It would help boost the FPS a little bit. Frame generation is really where you get a huge boon to the FPS. DLSS helps too, but no frame generation, DLSS on quality. You'll see the FPS. It's not going to be that much. Like, and I'm sure you can visually see the stutteriness of this, right? Comparatively speaking. now. The camera was running out of battery there, so I had to swap it. So we were doing 35. Now we're doing about 65. All right, let's go ahead and run through this. Our 1% lows are stuttering a bit. Wow. Our CPU, so this is a very CPU bound area of the game. 63 FPS. This is at 1080p too. So you can see how big of a difference it makes, but at least we're still over 60 FPS with frame generation on. That makes this game playable with maximum settings. That's pretty sweet. Obviously, you could turn off ray tracing and see another big boost to the FPS in Hogwarts. So, and the game still looks pretty good without frame generation enabled, or sorry, without ray tracing enabled. Okay, so audio should be better now. Let me know. Thanks for letting me know. All right, so Hogwarts Legacy, I would say it's very playable. At 1080p at least, it's very playable. A very enjoyable experience. And that's with everything on Ultra. As long as you have frame generation enabled. Without frame generation, it just would not be nearly as nice of experience. And that's where a 3070 Ti is not going to have frame generation. So if you're shopping around at the $1,500 price point and you're debating between a 3070 Ti or a 3060, and this laptop, the ability to flip on frame generation in frame generation games that are not competitive, fast response rate games it's gonna be a big advantage for this laptop. Okay, so here we are in Cyberpunk 2077. Let's try everything on Ultra. Full screen. Graphics. Everything is set to ray tracing on Ultra. Frame generation is on. We're going to set DLSS to quality. We're at 1080p. Let's run the benchmark. See what we get. How much latency do you get with frame generation? I'm not sure, but it is only noticeable if you're someone who's very sensitive to it. It still feels very responsive. For me, I do notice the slight increase in latency. It's not for free. It definitely has, like, I'm guessing 5, 10, 15 ms latency addition. I'm not sure. In that range, 5 to 15. Which is not bad for casual gaming. It's great. But if you're doing like an esports game, frame generation's not great. That's my take on it. I forgot to ask, does this have a mux switch? It does. We are in dedicated GPU only mode right now, and you can switch it between hybrid mode and integrated only mode. So dedicated, hybrid, and integrated. And so if you want to do maximum battery life, you can switch it over into that integrated mode, so you know the NVIDIA GPU is completely turned off, which is going to be great for maximizing your battery life. It's not going to accidentally turn on or something on you. And that's probably what I would be doing. So our temperatures have been fantastic, but our TDPs here are very low. This is a very light chassis too, but still TDPs are not that high. I don't know. Anyway, let's see. I'm going to move my in-game overlay here a little further. Let's try 600. There we go. Okay, so we got 109 FPS on average. Everything maxed out in Cyberpunk 2077. That is pretty dang good. That is pretty dang playable, at least. Okay, but that's with frame generation on and DLSS. Let's turn off ray tracing. Let's turn off DLSS. Let's just do raw rasterization with no ray tracing enabled. Manny Gaming with the $10. He says, I'm also, thank you so much, or the 10 euros, sorry. I'm also considering the Blade 18. The thing is, I need virtualization for my business with Android emulators. How can I undervolt it without access to XTU to virtualization? I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on virtualization, man. Thank you so much for the support. But I would say that if you need to not do undervolting, it's okay. You're still going to get like 90% of the same performance, or at least 90 to 85% of the same performance with or without the undervolt. So it's not like it's not like half the performance from undervolting, but undervolting's nice. Don't get me wrong. All right, so frame generation is off. DLSS is off. Ray tracing is off. All right. Everything is set to maximum, but no DLSS, no frame generation, no ray tracing. All right, let's see what we get with the raw. I really want to undervolt it. I don't know what to tell you, man. If you need virtualization, then you probably just are not going to be able to do undervolting. Looks like the camera went out. Swap this guy. Okay, getting the camera resituated here. There's no way I can cancel this test, but so everything on ultra settings or highest settings with no ray tracing DLSS, still getting great FPS. And I mean, you want a high quality gaming laptop, a high performance laptop at least, and you just want to do 1080p gaming. I mean, this will get the job done at 1080p at least. It'll get the job done. Maybe not necessarily the best bang for the buck buying power necessarily when you take the whole package together, but especially if you're going to use an external monitor, this thing is pretty dang impressive. We got 81 FPS, 37 for our low. You didn't see the frame generation benchmark? Okay, I'll restart that. Thank you for letting me know. Picked up the GE78HX thanks to your reviews. Cool, engineered. I've actually got that in the garage. The 4080 GE78, I set that up. They came in the same time as I got this Katana, but I wanted to get this Katana review done first. Okay, so we're going to turn on frame generation, DLSS on quality. Ray tracing is set to ultra. Frame generation on, DLSS set to quality. Everything's set to ultra. We're at 1080p full screen. Let's go. All right. Is the GPU only to 85 watts? No, it should go up to 105 if there's not much of a CPU load. But in all of these games we're testing so far, there's a strong CPU load, so it pulls the total GPU TDP. It pulls it down to 85 basically when under a dual load. Yeah. So once again, our VRAM is being maxed out. Not as future-proof, guys. Just pointing that out again. Not as future-proof because the VRAM is being maxed out. But our frames per second is obviously very playable. Everything's on ultra here. Ray tracing enabled. DLSS is on quality. Frame generation is on 100 FPS in Cyberpunk. That's pretty good for $1,500, I think. That's my initial, at least in terms of performance potential. That's pretty good. I haven't seen how this stacks up against all the competition out there, but if you're looking for a quality gameplay experience, 100 FPS is dang good for $1,500 in Cyberpunk. Everything on ultra, but you got to be okay with a 1080p experience, and you got to be okay with the slower display quality or using an external monitor. VRAM is the biggest letdown. Yeah, for this generation, I would tend to agree, especially for future-proofing. But yeah. Okay, average FPS was 109.56. Minimum was 38.9. So obviously very, very good performance. Let's see if we can get into a little bit of a firefight here in Cyberpunk and just see what kind of FPS we get. Would like to see this against a Legion laptop. That would be pretty sweet. I do think the Legion laptop will probably perform a little bit better. Okay, so I believe we want to go to... I think this one? You bought a RTX 4090 laptop hoping to be done for a while? Yeah, man, I think you will be. You'll be good for a long time, I think. Does anyone else hate 16 by 10 compared to 16 by 9? Okay, so I need to change. I need to go further back. Here, this is the setting. This is the save I need to load so I can shoot some people. I personally do like 16 by 10. It makes it easier to edit videos. But in certain games like esports games, I do like having 16 by 9 instead. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our average for this section. I just started the frame rate. We're at 109. This is very smooth, good gameplay. I can kind of tell there's a slight delay to this display. This display is not the optimal esports display. I don't have any health kits. Why don't I have any health kits? What is this crap? Yeah. I'm almost dead. I need to find a health kit. You guys got any health kits over here? Oh my goodness, I'm about to die. Okay, boom. We were able to defeat all these guys without any med kits. That's good. All right, so this is obviously playing really good. And for 1080p gaming, this is going to work really well. Again, I would recommend an external monitor if you want better display quality. All right, let's move on to our next game. We've done God of War, Hogwarts Legacy. We did Cyberpunk. We are now going to do Red Dead Redemption. Let's go. What's the graphics card memory? It's 8 gigs. Temps are looking good. They are looking good. 4070 versus 3070 Ti for 8K video editing. Swift detecting. If you're going to do a high-end video editing, I really would recommend getting a 4080 because a 4080 is going to have a, I believe, twice the video encoder helper. It's like going to be double basically the video encoding booster. Like it's something in the architecture. They have 2 of them instead of 1 of them in the 4050, 4060, and 4070. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but yeah. So a 4080 and 4090 laptop GPU is going to be much better for video editing than this generation. So. 4070 versus 3080 laptop. Still 3080 laptop. Yeah, I would say 3080 is going to be great still. Like this has a 3080 right here in my laptop, and it's still good. Don't get me wrong, it's not a bad laptop. And if you, as long as like in Hogwarts, basically, if I wanted to play at higher frames per second, like over 100, you're basically going to play without RTX. You're not going to have frame generation, and you just have to be willing to accept that. If you're going to stick with RTX 3000, just be willing to turn some settings down here and there. Okay, and be willing to. You have to understand you're not going to have frame generation. If you're okay with that, don't feel like sticking to the 3000 series is totally fine. Feel no pressure to upgrade. I think RTX 4000 really makes a lot of sense only if you have a ton of money and you want to spend it to get something a bit better, because it's definitely better with frame generation. But it really makes more sense if you have an older generation, like a 1000 series laptop, or a weaker like 3050 Ti, maybe a 3060. But a 3070 and 3080 especially are still very powerful, in my opinion. Okay, so we're at 1080p. We're at full screen. We do not want VSync enabled. We do not want half. We want that off. We're going to go down here and we're going to set our everything to maximum settings. We're going to apply our changes. We're going to keep that. Is the GTX 1650 laptop still worth it in 2023? I think in 2023, a GTX 1650 is going to be able to play 1080p games on low to medium settings in a lot of titles. So you're still going to get some good gameplay out there. But yeah, it would be a massive upgrade to get something like this from a GTX 1650. That said, again, the display on this is probably the weakest area of this laptop. Red Dead Redemption 2 on 1080p is very blurry. Yeah, so this is going to be Red Dead Redemption at 1080p. We are going to be seeing what kind of frame rate we get with this RTX 4070. No DLSS. No DLSS. Just raw, no ray tracing. Get a 4080. It's much more future-proof and more of an upgrade. It is more future-proof and more of an upgrade, especially if you're doing QHD or 4K gaming. But I would say that if you're just going to do 1080p gaming, a 4050, 4060, or 4070 all should be able to push out good frame rates at 1080p, probably at pretty close to maximum settings in almost all games. That's the main thing. But a 4080 is obviously going to be a big upgrade. That's going to be very noticeable, especially at QHD. Even at 1080p, it'll be noticeable. But yeah, there's a pretty sizable jump between 4070 and 4080 in this generation. Is Gigabyte a brand that you would recommend? I have owned a number of Gigabyte-made laptops. I've owned Aorus, or basically Gigabyte makes Aorus laptops. And I have had no problems with my Aorus laptops. They have been workhorses. My buddy bought my Aorus X7, and he is still using it. And it's like 6 years old now. Still, it's got a GTX 1080 in it. Still a great laptop. So I would say that Aorus is a good brand. Gigabyte is a bit more budget oriented on their laptops lately. Not necessarily the Aero. The Gigabyte G5 and G7, those are more budget oriented. And I would recommend them for their money typically. I have reviewed them in the past. There's a redesign this year for the Gigabyte G5, and I have not got the hands-on it yet, but I have it coming in the mail. So be expecting it. Be expecting a live unboxing comparison with this guy. So I'm expecting it to be a good value and decent performance. Is QHD that much more noticeable on a 16-inch screen? It depends on how good your eyesight is. I do think it is noticeable for me. I especially like the additional real estate for editing videos and browsing web pages that QHD gives you. But you'd have to have good eyesight to be able to have it be very noticeable. Is the 1080 Ti holding up well till now? I think it is, as long as you're willing to turn down the graphics to like medium or low. Or if you're just sticking to 1080p gaming still, a 1080 is still reasonable. Like my buddy plays Apex with me on his GTX 1080, and it still cranks over 144 FPS on that laptop, and that's how fast his display is. So that's all he really needs. So in Red Dead Redemption right now, we're pulling the 76 FPS, 27 FPS for our 1% lows. We're doing 75 to 85 watts of GPU power, over 2100 megahertz on the GPU clock, which is good but not great. We'll definitely see higher GPU clock speeds on higher TDP laptops. And that'll translate into higher wattages, like up to like 130, 125, 140 watts on the GPU. And that's going to give us more FPS. This is definitely leaving some FPS on the table that the 4070 would be able to push out. That said, this gameplay is obviously perfectly fine. It's going to be very smooth at 76 FPS with a 28 FPS 1% low. So Red Dead 2 is going to be another winner for this laptop, at least at 1080p. If you like a MacBook Pro Retina screen on a laptop, which PC laptop would you want to get? You'd want to get at least a QHD in a 16-inch chassis. But you might even consider going for a 4K, like 17-inch one. That would be very comparable as well. Okay, so we got 74.6 average FPS in Red Dead 2 at 1080p. Very nice. Obviously going to be very playable and enjoyable experience in Red Dead 2. All right. Next up, we have Apex Legends. Let's go. So I'm a big Apex Legends player. I love Apex Legends. And I'm going to see, this is going to be the game where we're going to really kind of tell how much screen delay there is. See if it's a fast response rate display. See if there's ghosting on the display. I want to see if there's an overdrive setting. I'm not seeing an overdrive. Let's see. So I'm looking at the settings right now in MSi Center. Display power saver means that it'll switch to 60 hertz when on battery mode. Yeah, I'm not seeing any kind of overdrive setting. I'm going to need to make this smaller if I'm going to play this game right now. Let's go ahead and just go down to like 12. Make sure to get the Nemesis rifle. Dude, that thing is pretty freaking baller. So was it four round burst laptop? All right, so let's hop into the firing range first. We're set to 144 FPS cap right now. We want to try to bypass that to see what this can get. And we probably don't even need to set all these settings down to low. But we might as well. I need to add the command FPS plus FPS underscore max 300. All right. What's my room temperature? It's right now about 72 degrees approximately, somewhere in that range. How much is this MSi Katana? It's in the title, $14.99. Should I get a GP77 with a RTX 4070 for $2,600? Or wait for the GE66? I want good temps, great screen colors for good visuals and movies and great sound. Or get the Studio 16 Thin and Light. I wouldn't recommend the Studio 16 Thin and Light. For $2,600, I would encourage you to look around at your options. Because you could get something like the Strix G18, and that'd be much better, I think, than either of those with an RTX 4080 for $24.99. You could also go like HP Omen 17 and get an RTX 4080 for like $2,300. If you want to shop around for different laptops, I would encourage you to hop over to my laptop list after the stream is done and just search around in your price point. Use the price over here and filter around to get to like your rough price range, and you can shop around on here and really shop around and get better, compare laptops across sizes and price within a category. And yeah, I don't think I would really recommend a GE66. Well, put it this way, I would not recommend paying for an RTX 4070 for over $2,000. If you're going to buy an RTX 4070, keep that budget below $2K. Because if you go above $2K, like up to $2,300, then you really should shoot for an RTX 4080 laptop, in my opinion. Okay, so wow, we're pushing 287 FPS right now. It's impressive. This is, of course, everything on low. My settings are too high. That's probably the most important settings to change. All right. Okay, so this will give you an idea of how good I can control the gun. Let's do the shooting range test here. All right. I am definitely experiencing some ghosting. This is definitely playable, but it's not a fast response rate display. Definitely could be a lot better experience on a higher end, quicker response rate display. And there is definitely a little bit of visual ghosting going on. But you can see my aim is actually not that bad. It's pretty good. It's just all comes down to how competitive you are and how much you're willing to spend. You could obviously hook this up to an external monitor and be getting these kinds of frame rates with an external monitor. No problem. We can't see the game. Oh, sorry, guys. There you go. I'll have to reset this. Sorry. All right. Thanks for letting me know, chat. So let's do this again. All right. So here is Apex Legends in the shooting range. I'm going to start the average FPS recording now. I don't know if you can tell, chat, but I am definitely seeing a bit of ghosting on the display. And it makes it a little bit harder to aim. It's not terrible, though. Like, it's not such a horrible response rate that you just can't play esports games. But the ghosting is a bit distracting. Like, if you got a lot going on your screen, the ghosting will make it a little harder to aim. And let me show you guys also what this looks like with the crosshair enabled in the settings here. So I'm going to go and flip that on. Can it come on? There's the crosshair. And for video, we'll probably have to do borderless window to be able to see our crosshair. So there's our crosshair. It's causing a glitch where the mouse comes up. Okay, so that is definitely a bit bugged. They need to work on their crosshair, guys. All right, so let's go to our gameplay, and I want to make sure the auto sprint is enabled. Okay. Let's go ahead and hop into a death match. Am I using the latest drivers? I am using latest drivers, yes. What do you think about the Zephyrus Duo 4090 for $39.99? It's pretty sweet. If you want a dual display, if you want something, if you think you're going to utilize the dual display, and you don't mind the keyboard shift down to where the keyboard shifted very close to you, then it's going to be pretty sweet. I have got a Zephyrus Duo 16 coming in the mail. I will be doing a overview of that, live stream unboxing, benchmarking, just like this video. So it's be expecting that. Reposition the hard drive here. Okay. Let's see if we can kill anybody. I'm anticipating we'll be able to do some damage. Okay, so we know there's a guy over here. Oh no! Oh yes, we survived. How did we survive that long? That's crazy. All right, I'm gonna turn on. Is there a way I can mute my squad? I just don't want these guys like swearing on the stream. So the sound's pretty good actually, like in terms of hearing the gameplay. It's not very spatially aware though, like. Let me see. I mean, I can hear that it's on the right side just a little bit, but it's not super noticeable. Wow, we didn't die to that. Oh, we died to that guy, though. Do you think it's worth upgrading from a Strix 3070 laptop to a 4080? Yeah, maybe. If you've got the money. I wouldn't say it's going to be an enormous upgrade, though. I'm trying to find who's shooting at me over here. I can't really tell where people are because I don't have good ears right now. Ooh, we got one. Can we get another one? We got a headshot there. Oh, crap. We are gonna die. So this is clearly a great performer, putting out great FPS. So if you wanted to play esports games with this, with an external full HD 240 hertz display, I think it would be a great option for you. The internal display, though, is not that great. Really, if you get this laptop, I'm going to be recommending a lot of people to be getting getting an external monitor if you want better color gamut and no ghosting. If you're just doing casual games, this is going to be great, though. Well, not great. It's going to still not have very high brightness or color gamut either. So it's just harder to recommend this laptop with the display unless you're not very picky. I've said that like 10 times on this stream, but I just want to make sure anyone that's just tuning in is hearing the full context. We did test the display of this laptop a little bit ago, so hop back a little further in the live stream if you want to check out the display results. I think it was 230 nits brightness on the display. Okay, so we did our 5 games testing. Let's do our Timespy test. Really curious to see what we get. All right, so Timespy, no demo, everything is stock, no overclocking, and then we're gonna do some overclocking for Timespy. Okay, we're gonna see what we can push this thing up to. I have no idea. I've not done an overclock on a 4070 yet. This is the first time running Timespy on a 4070 for me. I have not tested this up to this point. Do. I'm anticipating a score between 11 and 13,000, maybe 14,000. I think it's going to be closer to the 11 and a half. If I were to guess, I'm guessing 11 and a half. Wow. Our temps are really, really good. I'm really surprised, though, that we're not pushing more than 85 watts to the GPU. And in my opinion, it's a little bit misleading to say that this is a 105 watt GPU if you can't hit 105 in Timespy. So I would really say this is an 85 watt because we have not seen it push above that. That's one downside, I guess you could say. That said, the performance we're seeing at 85 is surprisingly good. Not necessarily in comparison to other laptops out there, but just like in general, if you're looking for a 1080p gaming laptop, you're going to be able to play 1080p games really well with the laptop GPU that's in this laptop. Does that make sense? Like you pick literally any game, you run it at 1080p resolution. We've seen flawless performance in every game we've ran, even in really demanding games like Hogwarts, with everything on maximum. If you start going up to QHD, I'm pretty sure the VRAM is going to start limiting you a lot more. Frame gen is going to be a big plus. Yes, it will be. Steve O'Nash says 85 TGP is low. I agree. The thing is, though, Ada Lovelace architecture and the 4 nanometer finish process with this, it's still giving us great performance even with the lower wattage. I'm sure it can scale up, but I'm pretty sure the Ada architecture just scales down to lower wattages better than 3000 Gen did. So like I've seen a few different graphs that have indicated that, and I would tend to agree with them. Basically that having higher TDP is still going to give you more performance. Like if this was 140 watts right now, we would definitely have higher clock speed, definitely have higher performance. But it's not as severely limiting as what it was with the 2000 or 3000 series, simply because of the 4 nanometer architecture. 4070 goes up to 140 watts. It's 120. It's 115 base plus 25 boost. So it's in Timespy, the 145 watt laptops. The 140 watt laptops should be able to push 140 watts in Timespy, in my opinion. So our CPU going all the way up to 95 watts, or 85 degrees. It went up to 95 for a moment, but so you definitely, I think, would get thermally limited in this heavily CPU-bound game like that. Okay, so we got, wow, my guess was almost exactly on point. 11,301. All right, so just roughly comparing this, right? This is pretty similar to what a bottlenecked 3080 would do, like a little bit lower TDP 3080 would do. A higher end 3070, a bottleneck 3070 Ti could hit around this point, but a 3070 Ti could definitely score higher than this. So really, it's going to come down to if you're comparing this against a 3070 Ti in terms of raw graphics potential, you're going to get about the same as a similar TDP 3070 Ti in that ballpark, or 3070, a high TDP 3070. So yeah, it's for 1080p gaming, it's going to be fantastic. Just like with a 3070 Ti, 1080p gaming is fantastic. The place where this is going to really excel is going to be your frame generation games, which is not all the games out there, though. That's right. You're going to get that 50%, maybe 100% FPS boost using frame gen, and that is going to make a big difference in games like Hogwarts. We saw it make a big difference, but not all games have that. Okay, so we're going to try overclocking. Let's go. We're just going to start at 200. And we're going to start at 700 for our memory. It's a bit aggressive as our starting, but if we see instability, we'll adjust. $4090 is 2 times the GPU. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty insane, right? There's a huge gap between this 4070 and a 4080 or 4090. In terms of raw graphics potential, is a big difference. And I'm anticipating like a high-end 4070 might be able to push 13,000, maybe 14,000 with an overclock. Maybe. It's hard to say. We're going to loop this. We're going to do window mode. Let's go ahead and run this. We're going to test our overclock right now. Steve Onashy says, agreed. It's better than a 60 class. It's basically an RTX 3060 upgrade. It's the equivalent. It's the third best GPU. So when I compare this, I'm really, I compare it with GPU tier versus GPU tier. That's to me, the best way to compare it. Okay, wow, our GPU overclock, we put 200 in there, and it went up about 200 higher on the clock. We were doing about 2,000 something, a little over 2,000, and now we're doing between 2160 and 2250. So our GPU overclock is definitely applied, and it's doing really well so far. Yeah, Niebuhr, I agree. This should have been labeled an RTX 4060. But NVIDIA went with their whole naming scheme. I did a detailed explanation of my thoughts on this earlier in the live stream. I don't know, about 20 minutes into the live stream if you want to hear my thoughts. But this is the third tier GPU, and it's really a successor to the RTX 3060. And it's priced to be a successor to the 3060. You know, when the 3060 launched, it was $1,500. At least in the majority of chassis. In the cheapest chassis, I think it was 1,000. But that was like very, very low watts. And it was only like in the GF63 or something. So with inflation, factoring in inflation, to me, this is an RTX 3060 successor. And when you're comparing performance, that's the GPU I would really be comparing it with. but NVIDIA did the whole naming scheme shenanigans. So it also makes sense to compare it to a 3070 or 3070 Ti just because of it's carrying on the same name. And it's going to be confusing, very confusing, and very easy for consumers to be misled, which just sucks. I hate that. It's going to be better when they go to the 5000 series. You know, when we're comparing a 4070 to a 5070 in 2 years, it's going to make way more sense. All right, so we're going to jump this up to 250 on the core clock and see if we run into any instability. I don't know if we're going to even see any increased clock speed up here. Right now, we're already not really seeing much clock speed increase. Okay, so we almost saw 2300 there for a moment, but in general, we're already running into limiting factors for our GPU overclock. Our temps are awesome, though. I gotta say, this cooler boost is really keeping these CPU and GPU temps in check. Yeah, Undefiner, that's right. Average consumers won't be this in-depth in the loop, and it's going to be easy for them to make money on the uninformed consumer. And that's why I hate the new naming scheme, just in general. But I understand why NVIDIA did it. They wanted to have parity between the desktop lineup and the laptop lineup. I just wish it was more clearly identified which laptop should be lined up with which laptop. And it's going to be confusing this year, so we got to do what we got to do. I'm going to try upping the memory. I'm going to add 200 to 900, see if we run into instability. I definitely, if you could try to revise the VBIOS and push this up to the 105 watt limit that it's supposed to be advertised at, you would see a noticeable bump in performance, and the temperatures would still be really good. Performance per dollar is exactly the same as the Strix G18. 19,000 Timespy GPU for $2,500 or 12K for $1,500. It's very similar, yeah. Upgrading a laptop this gen is not worth it, in my opinion. I would say it's not worth it if you're on a budget and you already have a good laptop. If you have a crappy laptop, then I think it could be worth it. Or if I think the frame generation technology is going to be implemented in the future, and it could definitely be argued that buying an RTX 4000 series is going to help you future-proof a lot more than buying RTX 3000 series, you know? What's the difference between Afterburner and throttle stop? Thank you. Oh yeah, I haven't really explained Afterburner to you guys. So Afterburner is a GPU overclocking tool and monitoring tool. So this overlay right here that we have is a combination of Afterburner data and Riva Tuner, which is a thing that's installed when you install Afterburner. And so this provides the overlay, and this is our GPU tool. I'm using this to overclock the GPU. So let me blow up this interface a little bigger so it's a little easier for you to see. And so this interface right here is going to let us modify the core clock target rate, but it may not actually work. Once you get beyond a certain point, if there's not voltage to actually boost the clock high enough, it's not going to go higher than the target what you set in here. And by setting it too high, you're just going to get diminishing returns. So most of the RTX 4000 series laptops I've tested with overclock so far, the diminishing returns start at about 200 on the GPU clock, and 900 or 1,000 on the memory clock. I don't know. We're seeing some stability. I believe we're stable here. We have good temperatures. Let's go ahead and try rerunning Timespy and seeing what we get with this overclock. And I think we'll see probably a 500 to 1,000 point gain. I don't know, somewhere probably like 500 point gain. So maybe we'll get close to 12K. All right, let's go ahead and run it. Depends on if you play games with frame generation. Yeah. If you play Cyberpunk or Hogwarts, it's kind of worth it to upgrade from a 30 series to 40 series. Yeah, if you want to play with all the bells and whistles on, Kalen, yeah, I would tend to agree. It's going to be more worth it if you're playing frame generation games. If you just play esports games, shoot, you could still probably be good with an RTX 2060. If you're okay with low and medium settings, shoot, you're not going to need to upgrade for a long time. Just get yourself a $1,000 laptop from 2 years ago, and you'd still be good. Undefiner says, if they put M letter for laptop GPUs, it would be a better clarification. Yeah, that would help, but the thing is, it's not just that. It's also the fact that they changed up how their, the tiering structure is different now. The GPU tiers have changed. They've shifted 10. It went from the best one being an RTX 3080 to now being a 4090. So everything is up 10, a factor of 10 every time, or you add 10 extra. And so when you're doing the comparisons from RTX 4000 series to RTX 3000 series, you got to take a 10 off. So RTX 4090 should be paired with an RTX 4080 Ti. A 4080 is the second best GPU, so you pair it with the second best 3000 series 3070 Ti or 3070. The 4070 is the third best GPU, so you pair it with the third best RTX 3000 GPU, the 3060. At least if you're wanting to compare more fairly. Now, for casual consumers, they're going to be super confused because a 4070 sounds like it's the same tier as a 3070 Ti. So you see this $1,500 laptop for $1,500, and then you see a 3070 Ti, which actually could have better performance in certain games, especially if it has a better CPU or has a better TDP, like 35 watt or 140 watt or whatever, 3070 Ti. It's gonna do higher FPS in raw rasterization than this one, pretty much guaranteed. But not in frame generation games. And so it's going to confuse the crap out of a lot of consumers. But we've talked about that a lot. We could probably move on to a new topic. Yeah. So Ahmed asks, do you think a 4070 is better than a 3070 Ti? I bought a 3070 Ti last week, Legion 5 Pro. I think a 3070, yeah, I basically answered your question already. But a 3070 Ti is going to be a great laptop, and it could likely outperform this one in a lot of games. Just not frame generation games. That's the one where a higher powered 3070 Ti is going to not beat this one at a lower TDP. So, but yeah, overall, this is obviously this is a compelling laptop for me. For people that don't care about display quality, or they're just not very picky about display quality, or they're just planning on using an external monitor mainly. And then you can get like a higher tier 4070 GPU compared to most other laptops at $1,500 is a 4050 or 4060. So that's just what's nice about this one. I just wish it was a higher TDP 4070. Okay, so we got 11,819 for our graphics score. So not quite 12,000. Still very good overall, in my opinion. Now, before I need to do a speaker test, and then I also want to test QHD gaming on my projector. Those are the last things I need to do, so that way we can have comparison benchmarks of this 4070 that match the 4080 and 4090 that I have, so I can do proper comparisons at the right resolution. So Artlist, getting logged in to the sound music website that I use. All right. Okay, so we're going to back this up. We're going to test the sound here. We're going to set fans to not be blaringly loud. And there they go. The fans just turn off really quick. Okay. Here is Roar by Peter Spacey. And I'm going to turn this up, back this up just a little bit. All right. There we go. And here we go. I'm going to restart it. This is Half-Life. This is Half-Life by Faded Aeon. All right, and this is La 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 by Deuce Williams.
I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la. I love you like la 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 la.
Okay, so this has two 2-watt speakers. The mids are there. The bass is very minimal. The highs are there, but they're kind of broken up. They're not very high quality. The speakers on this are budget, as is the price tag, as pretty much as expected. It'll work in a pinch if you need to watch a YouTube video. It'll work fine. The volume is not super loud, but it's there. If you're in a quiet room, you'll clearly hear your audio, which is really kind of what you're shooting for in the budget range, right? It's pretty rare you're going to get really good speakers at this price point. La 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 la. Yeah. Okay, so there's a speaker test. Now let's hook this thing up to my projector and do some QHD benchmarks. So this will be the first time I've hooked it up to my projector, but it's the only way I'll be able to do QHD resolution benchmark tests for God of War, Red Dead Redemption, and Cyberpunk, which are those are the resolutions that we're doing for our comparison gaming laptop list. So yeah, Ahmed asks, how is the build quality? Is it all plastic? Yeah, it's all plastic, and there is some flex to the chassis. I do a detailed flex test earlier in the live stream, if you want to check that out. All right, so we're going to do all of those laptop boxes in the back. Where? What laptop? You don't see any laptop boxes? What are you talking about? Yeah, I have like 6 laptops in this room right now, and I have more in the garage. Okay, so we are. You can't see anything. Can't see anything. Okay, now you can see stuff. Okay, so there's the projector. It's probably gonna look a little bit washed out. I need to try to position this better. Okay. All right, how's that? Does that look good? Let's do some QHD gaming tests. It's tilted to the side. It's hard to tell. I think one of the legs is a little bit shorter than the other. This is probably got to go down just a hair for me. There we go. All right, it looks pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna do show only on second monitor, and voila. All right, and I need to turn around. We're gonna set this to 16 by 10 QHD. Beautiful. All right, and let's do God of War first. Shawam. Is that a Pimax in the back? Yeah, it's a Pimax 8K-X. Ooh, we've got our surround sound audio now because I'm plugged into the projector. Let's go. What projector am I using? It's the... Good question. I used to have it memorized what it was. I have to remember. Let me get you the exact... I'll get you the exact projector. It's the BenQ X300i. And it's $2,000 for this projector. It does 1080p 240 hertz as well. I'll put a link to this projector in the video description, and also I'll slap that link over into the chat. Okay, so that's the link to the projector that I'm using for these tests. It's a great projector. I think it's the best gaming projector that I know of in the price range. It's 4K 60 hertz or 1080p 240 hertz. And it's very fast response rate. So it's great for esports gaming too. Or casual gaming when you bump it to 4K. Okay, so that link is in the description now. All right. Sweet, so here we are. I need to turn this laptop around so I can see what I'm doing. Also, I need to turn it on to max fan mode. There we go. All right. We are set to 60. We don't want to be set to 60. Where is it? There we go. So we had to turn off VSync. And I should probably turn the sound down. Okay, because otherwise the sound will be overwhelming with my Sonos surround sound system. Okay, all right. Here we are. Let me just make sure that all the settings are correct. So we're in QHD. DLSS is on quality. Everything else should still be on ultra. Everything else is on ultra. So this is the kind of performance you can get on QHD plus 16 by 10. All right. Checking chat. All right. Here we go. All right, so we got 6633 for our God of War test. And that's the test we're going to use on the gaming laptop sheet. Very nice. All right, and let's do Cyberpunk. And this is going to be with DLSS on quality, ray tracing on ultra, and frame generation enabled. And then Red Dead will have no DLSS or frame gen. Ahmed Zain, why is it so washed out? It doesn't look washed out to me. It's the way the camera picks it up. And I also have a lot of RGB lighting around the room that's kind of spread out. Does God of War support DLSS 3? It does not, Ahmed. It just has DLSS 2.0 support. So there's no frame gen. All right, so checking our settings. I want to make sure we're bumped up to the correct setting. Or not. But yeah, it's. Oh, I need to probably turn down. That'll probably make that probably makes it look a lot better. The projector. I had the camera exposure set too high. So this is our QHD plus frame gen, DLSS on quality, ray tracing ultra, everything else on ultra. I should have had my average running during that whole time, but I did not. Oh well. Okay, so 73 FPS on average, 32 for the min. And for this test with the Scar 18 4090, I think we were getting 116. The Blade 18 got 120. And the Strix G18 got 102, I believe. So between this one and the Strix G18, it's a 29 FPS increase, which is a pretty substantial increase to performance. Going up to the 4070. Okay, and let's do, we still have Red Dead Redemption to do. What do you guys think about that? 29 FPS increase for $1,000 more. Is it worth it? I don't know. I think a lot of people would probably want to save their money. Probably. I don't know. Let's see what we get in Red Dead Redemption. Obviously, I'm buying a 4090 laptop, so that's a different beast entirely, but... Because I'm one of those people that always want the best, but... I can see why people would be very happy with this. Okay, so 2560 by 1600 resolution. All right, we want no VSync, everything set to ultra. Yeah, refresh rate is 60 is what we want. It was already set correctly. Anyway, I prefer to do full screen. All right. Let's do it. So this is our Red Dead Redemption at QHD. Syed Sam, you are an idiot. Why spend so much when you're not earning it back? See, for me, it's more about I want to have the most premium, best experience possible. That's what I want. And I want as much future-proofing as I can, even though I always end up buying a new laptop about every 2 years, usually at the longest. But, yeah. Already sold my car for a GT77. You got jokes, sir. I like it. It's life and hobby. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously you're an idiot in the sense that it's definitely not the most optimal way to spend your money if you're trying to be on a budget or save your money. So, but if you're just wanting to get the best overall experience and it's your hobby like me, like I'm an enthusiast. I love this stuff, and so I want the best, And it's not so much about me maximizing my performance per dollar anymore. It's more about just maximizing my enjoyment of the product. And being able to do everything that I do as quickly and as efficiently as I can, because I do edit tons of videos and use these laptops to the max. So it's okay, lost way more in stock market. Lull to optimal spending, kind of hard to resist. Mark says, I just break my old one and the warranty covers it. LOL. 1,200 pounds for a Razer 14 RTX 3080. Is that a good deal? Maybe. Yeah, that's probably a pretty good deal, actually. As long as the laptop's in good condition, that would probably be a pretty... I'm guessing it's used. Is that used? New? Unboxed? What is that? If it's used, that's just an okay deal. That's a good deal if it's used. It's an excellent deal if it's brand new. Yeah, and the other reason why the projector is kind of a little bit washed out is because I have all these studio lights in here and my RGB lighting. If I turn all my lights off, you'll see the projector, it will be way more colorful. Way more colorful and vibrant with the lights off. Mr. Alexander says, definitely good. We had a sale on the Blade 15 with 3080 for 2,000 euros the other day. Yeah. Yep. The new Alienware 16 and 18 are releasing with the 4080. Wonder what happened to the 4090s. And they're just delayed. It's going to come out, I'm pretty sure, Chris. Just give it time. So we're hitting 60 FPS here. QHD, ultra settings. Very playable. Like all of these games have been playable with this $1,500 RTX 4070. It's pretty impressive, actually, I think. I don't know. Like when you factor in everything, especially if you're going to use an external monitor with this laptop, you're going to really get a lot of mileage out of the hardware you're getting for $1,500. But if you're at all picky about the display on the internal laptop display, then don't buy this one, I would say. Go with the MSI Pulse 15. That's kind of my summary right now. I'm waiting for AMD CPUs to compare price differences. Yeah, that's a good idea. Because these AMD CPUs could be underperform or outperform our expectations by a lot, right? I personally don't like Alienware laptops. They look good, but they are always bad performance in the past for price. I think the price to performance ratio on Alienware laptops are a lot better this year than previous generation. I don't know, like they're actually priced pretty reasonably, I think, overall, and more competitively. But they are a little bit on the pricier side still, even. So we're averaging 58 FPS so far in this section. M16 thermals are good. Yeah, they are good just as long as you don't let the power limit go crazy like I was letting the power limit go crazy. All right. So 57.3 FPS, QHD Ultra settings, no DLSS. Impressive, impressive. Beautiful. Let's see here. I think that's all the QHD benchmarks that we need for now. Let me go ahead and unplug. Let me Alt F for this. Yes. Let's do a summary of everything we found out about this laptop now, okay? So this is basically going to be my mini review summary of this laptop. So let me turn the fans down so it's not as loud. And let's talk. All right. So the MSI Pulse 15 is, I think, arguably the best comparison or best competitor against this laptop because it has the QHD. It's basically this laptop with higher power limits and with a QHD screen. That's pretty compelling to me, given this overall product. I like the keyboard. The touchpad's plastic. It feels pretty good, though. I like that this comes with 16 gigs of DDR5 4000 megahertz memory, which is good. We did run into memory. We did cap out the memory in the Hogwarts, but the thermals on this were very good. The temperatures were very good, but the TDP limits were not that high, but we were still getting playable frame rates, especially at 1080p. It was great. In QHD resolutions, we were still getting playable frame rates in the 3 games that we tested. So if you do have a QHD external display, this is still going to push good frame rates out to that display, but you might run into VRAM limitations more easily at 4K or QHD. This looks relatively sleek. Yes, this is very sleek. It weighs only 4.9 pounds. So it is very thin and very light. It's less than an inch thick and weighs less than 5 pounds. It's $14.99. I'm not saying this thing is the most optimal buy, especially if you're sensitive to display quality. Only 230 nits, 61% sRGB color gamut. And the contrast ratio is good. If you're a casual gamer and you don't care about display quality that much, that's the biggest reason you'd want to get this. If you didn't care about display quality and you want a higher tier GPU, you want the 4070 instead of the 4060. You're basically saying, I don't care about the display quality. I'd rather get the higher tier GPU. This thing's going to be a great gaming laptop for a college student that doesn't care about the display quality as much. That's going to use an external display. I guess the battery life's not great, probably because it's only 53 watt hours. That'd not make it as good for a college student, I guess. It'd be okay for college students. I don't know. The keyboard felt good to type on. The backlight does look good, and everything's illuminated, including the secondary key functions, and you do have a number pad. There's no Windows Hello on this guy. Let's take a look at the webcam here. Let me pull up the camera. The display on this thing also has a bit of ghosting. For fast response rate gaming, it's not ideal. And it's something to keep in mind. Now, let me switch the camera so you can see the webcam, because we did not show this yet. You can do it. There we go. Okay. So the webcam is like, I think it's a 720p webcam. The speakers on this also were not that special. This will obviously work for a Skype call, but it's not going to be very high quality. It's very grainy, not very much detail in the hair. If you keep the window small, it's going to be a little harder to notice the graininess of it, but yeah. I mean, the webcam will work in a pinch. That's basically my summary of the webcam. But it's your typical meh overall webcam. For software, the MSI software is going to work fine, I think. For battery life, you're looking between 3 to 5 hours depending on how you optimize it. Maybe a little less if you don't optimize it at all for just like web browsing. Please remove porridge from the camera. LOL. Probably a VA panel if ghosting. Yeah, it's not a great panel. Definitely not a great panel. And so if you're sensitive to wanting a high quality display, skip this laptop and go for the Pulse 15 or another brand like the Strix G16 or Zephyrus G16, something else. Maybe an Acer Nitro 5. I went over a lot of different comparable laptops at the start of the stream. So go back to that section if you want a good look at some potential options. You can check the laptop list here for if you want to shop around for different options. Overall, the person who wants to buy this wants to maximize their GPU, CUDA cores, and potential like frame generation performance versus say buying an RTX 3000 series. The person who buys this is not going to care as much about the display quality, brightness, or color gamut. Maybe because they're going to use an external display most of the time, or they just, like I said, they just don't care about the display quality as much. They would rather have the graphical performance and future proofing. For 1080p gaming, this thing's going to crush it, I think. The 1080p games, it's going to do really well. You're going to be able to play 1080p games without any problems. QHD gaming, it was also still above 60 FPS in the 3 AAA games that we tested. And I'm pretty sure you're going to get over 144 FPS at QHD and a lot of esports games, maybe even 240 Hertz in QHD with this RTX 4070. It's a very powerful GPU for the money. Are you sharing the sheet? Raleigh, it is in the video description. There's a link in the video description if you want to check out that sheet. Yep, it's right there. Do you know about the new MSI Stealth 17 Studio? Would you recommend it? So given the price of the Stealth 17 Studio, I don't think I can recommend it very well because of the lower TDP on it and the fact that you can get something like the Blade 16 or 18 for about the same price. You could get a Blade 16 or 18 instead. And it's going to be better build quality, higher TDP on the graphics card, better overall performance. Probably better. The displays are probably going to be about the same, I guess. The display quality on the Studio 17 should be excellent, but yeah, for the money, the Studio 17 is just not that attractive to me. Okay, I think that answers all the questions in chat that I'm seeing, and I think that's a good summary of this laptop. This laptop is chock full of graphical potential, and it's going to make a lot of people happy. I don't necessarily think it's going to be the best buy for most people. I think something with a better display is going to be the better buy for more people. But I still think people are going to be happy with this laptop, or a lot of people will be happy with this laptop. So I guess that's my summary of the Katana. It's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag, and if you're okay with the parts that are meh, go for it. If you're not okay with the parts that are meh, go for another one. That's my summary of it. You know, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. It's good enough that some people are going to absolutely love this machine. But I think there are better options out there. I would recommend, in general, I would recommend other laptops over this one. So, is it the best combination? No. So the best one, given our information, I'll quickly point out the ones that I think are going to be the best. So if I set this to $1,500 price point. All right, and the best one right now, in my opinion, in the $1,500 price point is probably this guy, the Pulse 15 with a QHD display. At least it's available in the United States currently. There's some other great options though. You've got the Zephyrus G16. This one's also available from Best Buy. These are probably my two best alternative picks right now, but they only have 4060s, not 4070. So if you're okay with a 4060 at a little bit higher TDP, then those two should be very good, very competitive, and with better display, especially that Pulse 15 with a QHD display. I need to order this and get this in for review because I think it's a better buy than the Katana 15, based on everything that I know. Okay, so that's my summary of the Katana 15. Do I recommend it? Yes, but with major caveats. It's for the person that wants the highest tier GPU for the lowest price and who doesn't care about display quality. That's like if I were to summarize it in one sentence. But in general, I do think there are better options out there at $1,500. And I think it'd be worth sacrificing not buying the 4070 and going with a 4060 instead for that better display quality. Okay? That's my review of the Katana, basically. I think this might be the only video I make on it because I've got a lot of other laptops I've got to focus on. And yeah, I hope this is helpful for anyone that's shopping around and trying to decide if they're going to go with the Katana or not. So Evan says, I heard the new Razers are less good this year, though. I don't think so. I think the 16 and 18 are much better this year. Between a 3080 Ti 16 gig and 4070, which is better, I would probably go 3080. Well, if it's the same price, I would definitely go 3080 Ti 16 gig because some of those 4070 laptops are super overpriced. You could definitely get a 3080 Ti laptop for the same price as, say, like a Blade 18 3070 or 4070. When 4070 is good enough for 1080p, what's the point of a 4060? Or did I get it wrong? So 4070 is going to be great for 1080p. 4060 and 4050 are also going to be really good for 1080p, but they're not going to quite be as powerful, right? They're going to be slightly probably 15 to 20% less in performance for each step. So you might end up having to turn some settings down, especially on the 4050 or the 4060 in certain games. Like this was able to push over 60 FPS in QHD on all the games we tested, which is great. The 4060 probably would not be able to do that. It's probably going to do 50s. And the 4050 is probably only going to do 45, 50. So if you want 60 plus FPS in QHD, 4070 is going to get you there where the 4060 and 4050 might not. And at 1080p, obviously the frame rates were really good in this. I don't know. Undefinder says, I enjoyed the review. Heart. Thank you. Awesome. Glad you enjoyed it. Raleigh Edwards says, do you think it's a good idea to try different brand laptops like the Legion 7i right now? It's hard to change different brands. I am trying all the different brands, and I think there's good laptops with every brand and mediocre ones at every brand. And really it comes down to price to performance and the features you get with each laptop. Mr. Alexander said, did it do 60 plus FPS with or without frame generation then? Well, are you talking about a QHD or full HD? Mr. Alexander, it just depends on the game, but it was doing, in Cyberpunk, I think it did 90 something with no ray tracing and no DLSS and no frame gen. And with DLSS and ray tracing and frame gen, it still did really good at 1080p. So go back and check the benchmarks if you want specific numbers. But I mean, this thing played every game we threw at it really well at 1080p. So if you're just concerned with performance at 1080p, this thing's going to be really great. In the future, 5 years from now, there's going to be some games that probably are going to struggle with only 8 gigs of VRAM. That's another downside, but yeah. I feel frame generation is cheating somehow. It is cheating. It's using AI to artificially create in-between frames, but it works. And that's the thing. If it works, why wouldn't you use it? And if it does actually make a big improvement, it adds value, and it's okay that it adds value. But there's drawbacks. Adding latency does make it not good for fast response rate games. I was still able to aim fine in Cyberpunk 2077. Didn't make that big of a difference. And in general, I would rather have the increased frame rate smoothness and add a slight latency delay in a game like Cyberpunk. But I wouldn't want to do that in an esports game where I'm already getting high frames. So latency sucks. Yeah, latency does suck, but I would say that a perfect example is Cyberpunk 2077, where you're aiming down sights and everything. It's better to have more smooth frame rates to be able to understand and visually see what's going on so you can react to it, rather than stutteriness. So I would rather have like the FPS gains with frame generation is like 50 to 100%, depending on the game. It's huge. In Hogwarts, we went from 35 to like 65. That's like a 90% gain in frame rate. And it makes it so that it goes from playable with ray tracing to unplayable with ray tracing without frame gen. So when you're comparing a 3070 Ti that is going to get 35 FPS or 40 FPS maybe with ray tracing on in the same settings, and you slap frame generation on the 4070, it's going to make a day and night difference between an RTX 3000 and 4000 series laptop in those games, in those casual titles. It does make a difference, and I'm not afraid to say it. It does. And I'm not an NVIDIA sales pitch person. I'm someone who's been playing Hogwarts now. I'm like 20 something hours into Hogwarts, and I've been enjoying it on frame generation without any problems. And there's no reason why I would ever turn frame generation off. That's the thing. Like, why wouldn't I want it? The only reason I wouldn't want it is esports games, in my opinion. Would you wait for the next gen AMD laptops? If you want to wait for next gen AMD laptops, do it. That's totally fine. Especially if you want to wait for benchmarks, because we're going to have those soon. I've got some of those coming my way in the next week or two. And if you're not in any hurry to necessarily get a laptop, wait. Or you can buy a laptop now from a place like Best Buy that has a good return policy. And within 2 weeks here, we'll have the benchmarks. So you'll be able to return that laptop if you need to. Is a RTX 4070 good enough for the Blade 16? It depends on what resolution you're talking about, Evan. If you're talking about the QHD version of the Blade 16, then you're going to be able to play frames. You're going to be able to play games at good frame rates above 60 FPS, but you're not going to be pushing 240 hertz refresh rates except in esport titles. If you want to push higher refresh rates into the hundreds, a 4080, 4090 is going to really help boost the frame rates upwards in something like a QHD laptop. So, okay. Yeah, really take advantage of the return policy. Yeah, if you need to, you can take advantage of the return policy. I'm not saying you should, but you can. And you should if you feel you need to, in my opinion. But if you want to lock, like for example, the Strix G18, if it comes into stock, you see it in stock, pick one of those suckers up and return it if you need to. If you decide that, oh, I want an AMD processor instead, that's totally fine. That's something that I would do as a buyer. So, and that's the thing, like those really high demand laptops, like the Scar 16, the Strix G18, stuff like that. I would do that for those. Just make sure that if you buy one of those laptops that you might return, only buy it from a place that you can actually return it to. The GE78HX is at $32.99. Is it worth it? For which configuration is it at $32.99? I thought it was $35.99 for a 4080. Is that a 4070 for $32.99? That doesn't, I don't know. Mr. Alexander says, I upgraded from a 3050 laptop to an Aorus 17H with a i7 13700H and 4080 now. That's where I felt like I should upgrade. Yeah, I think that's a great bang for the buck upgrade. I don't have an Aorus 17H coming my way yet, but I'm talking to Aorus and I'm hoping they're going to send me some laptops. What's the TGP for this laptop? It's supposed to be 105, but I only saw up to 85. 85 was the highest I saw, even in Timespy. So, yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the summary. Drop a like on this review / unboxing testing of the laptop. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Boom. Michael says i9 193080HX. What? I don't think the 19th generation is out yet for Intel, but give it about 5 or 6 years. Okay. We'll see you in the next live stream. I'm hoping to do the MSI GT77 or MSI GE78HX live stream tomorrow. So see you guys tomorrow.